6 o'clock.
Welcome to the Bellows Falls Village Trustees regular meeting, it being Tuesday, November 13th, 2018 at 6 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. Additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting.
I have none.
That would move us on to approving the minutes of October 23rd, 2018.
Approve the minutes.
Is a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a couple of those, take one. Any comments on the minutes as they are written? Okay, hearing none, move to approve. All those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Public comment on items not on the agenda, 3 minutes per person. All right. Hearing none, we move on to the manager's report.
Okay. Madam President, members of the board, just a few things. The Chroma ribbon cutting last week was a good event. It did result in some good press for the village and for the town. And I passed out an article that was on that was in Vermont Digger, which I'm not sure if you normally look at. It's an online newspaper, but there was also a good article in the Reformer, so that was great. Update, the town hall cleaning to eliminate the mold is happening now. Staff is being very flexible and patient and appreciate it. There have been some disruptions in service to the public, but we're doing our best to make sure everybody gets what they need. The third floor was downstairs last week and they're still here this week. Tomorrow is supposed to be the transition day, so the third floor moves upstairs and the second floor moves down here. So that'll be interesting. The clerk was closed Monday, obviously, for the holiday, and then also yesterday. They should be open tomorrow.
Down here?
No, in their regular
their regular
locations.
space.
Because of the vault, we want people to be able to access the vault. So the cleaners came in on the holiday to clean that area and sealed it off from the rest. The elevator work is scheduled for later in December, so it's good that that's after the mold and not at the same time. We will have someone in the lobby at all times, so that, or all times during business hours, to take care of customers who can't get up to the second floor without an elevator. Highway Department still picking up leaf and yard debris, Mondays and Fridays only through November 30th. And just a reminder about the SEDS meeting, it's the last one in the public hearing or public input process, and that'll be tomorrow. Gary Fox sent you an email, it'll be
6 to
here,
8
I don't
o'clock.
know the time, okay, so it's an
6 to 8.
6 to 8. And that's a public event, so the public's welcome to be there. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Now, moving on to the agenda, we are at item number 1, update on unsafe buildings. We only have one item here. I was just wondering why 203 Paper Mill was removed, although we asked for it to be on the agenda.
We
There's
basically
nothing
don't
to
have an
hear?
update.
Okay, there's no update on 20.
Can you speak a little louder, please?
There's no update on the 203 Paper Mill Road project as far as the unsafe building ordinance is concerned. So that moves us on to 66 Atkinson Street, the YMCA building. We asked for a plan from the property owner on the roof repair. We do have something we just received, haven't had time to read.
Maybe he could read it if he'd like to,
What's that?
if he could read it.
Could you read this to us, Chris?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Before I do this too, I'd like to thank the board for all the supportive members of the board. I think it means an awful lot to me. Also to the community that's come by and supported me, so I really.
I suggest you could sit there next to me.
Oh, all right. I tried to condense this and make it as concise as possible and as simple as possible with the idea of something beauty and simplicity. We've gone back to one of the original plans that were started, I guess maybe 7 weeks ago. And basically the materials have all been ordered, the materials are in. I have to pick up the materials in North Walpole
Also, excuse me, some of the structural materials that are down in Brattleboro with Chris Parker. So the idea is to use the period wood and materials that we need. So as I said, I tried to make this as concise as possible. All right, number one, excuse me, outside the roof, the upper roof will be encased with tarps, tied down and secured for the winter. That eliminates the loose slate, if any, problems of falling, and the need for the outside street barriers. Number two, inside, the above permits the continued clean-out of pigeon debris and the internal repair of roof supports with the appropriate period materials, all of which are available. Number three, funding is private information, and I've adopted the philosophy it is pay as I go, no debt or obligations. With the above, the practice of beauty and simplicity governs the project as well as any application or reports deemed necessary. Respectfully.
I'd just like to go back for a minute, if I may, to the minutes of October 23rd, 2018, on page 3, where we stated, board members for their, Deb Wright asked the board members for their thoughts on Glennon's request to delay action to the next meeting. Jonathan Wright stated that it would be 3 weeks till the next regular trustees meeting. Jonathan Wright also stated he would be inclined to postpone action for the 3-week period with the intent that Glennon provide the board with a detailed plan of how this is going to happen, and in the meantime, the street needs to be secured as requested and diagrammed by the town of Rockingham. Jay Wright stated there are structural items that are quite concerning. Stated that he agrees that there is a safety issue with debris that could possibly fall. But what I'm getting to is the fact that we asked for a detailed plan with who would be performing the work, when the work would be performed, how your monies were allocated, not by whom you received them, but that the funding was available to do this repair work, and a timeline of when this would be done. That's a detailed plan. That is not what we have received this evening, which we would have preferred that we had received prior to the meeting, so we had time to digest what we have received. So that's what I wanted to point out to the board before we go any further. That's what we requested. That's not what we received. Any other thoughts and concerns from the board members?
Yeah, in reference to the tarps that you were talking about, Chris, that you mentioned here, are we talking industrial grade, we talking vinyl, we talking canvas, or
No, we're talking industrial grade. Yes.
canvas or vinyl then?
It's a combination material.
Mhm.
It's, I don't know what the compound actually is in the makeup of it.
Any idea as to what the gauge is?
What did they tell me? 6, 8, I think 8. But anyway, it's a heavy industrial.
Okay.
It's the heaviest one that they make,
Right,
whatever that is.
okay.
Yeah. And it's a large tarp. It's 100 by 50.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons in the delay, was just trying to find one.
Right.
But anyway, it's available and I'm supposed to pick it up.
Mhm.
Now, as far as the work to be performed, myself and I've got a couple of volunteers, both of which are former roofers, and so we know how to do this as far as installing the tarp and securing it. So, but if you want to call me the project manager, it's my baby and I'm going to do it.
How does the tarping eliminate the falling slate?
Because what you do is you encapsulate the roof, so there's nowhere for the slate to fall. And actually, I've picked up no pieces of slate even since probably the 1st of August. There's nothing coming down right now.
What's your time frame on this?
Well, if I can pick up the tarp in the next couple of days. That's the big one. The ladders get delivered. I'd say probably if we get a couple clear days, within a week.
Anyone else? Because Wendy was going to tell us about when she was.
Well, I think,
The street will be closed, so.
I would just say that it's pretty clear to me from this brief and concise report here that Mr. Glennon has not met the conditions of what we're talking about. I think quite frankly, the idea of Chris and a couple of buddies going up and tarping that roof scares the bejesus out of me. I think when things are done, they need to be done by licensed and insured people. I think that, clearly there's no indication of the funding or the wherewithal for the funding. And I think I think quite frankly, the undertaking, I can understand certainly that the undertaking is way beyond your means, Chris. And I think that we should then proceed with the votes that we're required to take with regards to the unsafe property.
John?
I mean, this is forward progress. It's not our decision on how he does or who he does. This is a private property issue. We can't dictate. There's no code in the state of Vermont mandating that he has anyone of specific skill set or ability or license to do this work. So that's, I mean, as far as that goes, I don't think we have the ability legally to.
That was an opinion on my part.
Okay, okay. I just want to make sure that we don't get into a situation where we're mandating something that we don't have the authority to mandate over. I do have a couple of questions for the town manager on this. One of them is, I have noticed that we have asked for the street to be secured no matter what, and independent of what Mr.
Right.
Glennon does. And is there a time frame on that?
Tomorrow morning,
Okay,
the barriers are getting delivered, and
Oh.
the plan is to secure the street tomorrow.
okay. I mean, I understand this document that we have from Chris is not 100% of what we asked for. However, it does address the major concerns that we are talking about. And it does solve the issues in reference to the falling slate and whatnot, and it is forward progress. I think that we should still go on as a safety measure with the street closure.
Of course.
It's uncertain to exactly what extent, but at this point, I don't know that we should go forward with any other action.
Well, I'm concerned that whether or not the closing of the street will have an impact on the performance of the work that Mr. Glennon was explaining to us. That, are you going to be using a machinery to get you up to that edge of the building? Are you gonna putting up scaffolds to protect yourself?
The problem with where the sidewalk is on that side of the building are the wires, the power lines. So in a lot of conversations that I've had, we decided, no, it's much simpler, it's much safer to go in with the ladders than it is with the lift.
Okay, so you're going to use ladders
Yes,
basically on the sidewalk, because I don't think you
Yes.
push up front,
correct.
in order to secure the tarp on the
Correct.
building. Okay. And you're anticipating that if the weather remains clear, you'll be doing this within a week's time.
Yeah, I think we're fine.
Okay. So John is correct. This would indicate forward motion. It is not indeed the plan that we requested. Is the board willing to wait till its next meeting in 2 weeks to move forward with the unsafe building ordinance if indeed this has not been done? What are your opinions on that? Yes, Wendy?
I just want to make a suggestion. The town and the village are incurring costs for securing the road, and the intent was that we would place a lien on the property to recover those costs, because that is the reason for the costs. So I think that is something you should consider. And then without action on the unsafe building ordinance, I'm not sure that the town has the authority to go onto the property and install the fencing. So I think some sort of approval ought to be granted by the property owner if you don't proceed with the ordinance, so that we can secure the area.
With the fencing, as I looked at the drawing that Everett gave me, I do need access to that side of the building. That's going to be important.
Well,
So I
originally,
think it's,
the trustees didn't ask for fencing. The trustees asked for barricades.
Well,
what we
there was
asked for,
discussion,
what we asked for was the that Mr. Glennon pay for the cost of securing the
Right.
side.
Right.
That's what we asked for. And I think his proposal now is to put this tarp on the roof.
And to eliminate.
Which would obviate the need for closing off the street. Okay? So I think it's incumbent on this board that we don't go off in two directions, that we're consistent, and that we make the appropriate decisions. I mean, the way, if we were to say, go ahead, Chris, you got another week, and by the way, we're going to install this stuff tomorrow, obviating the need for it. It's addressing the issue two different ways. Doesn't make any sense. I think what this board needs to do is make sense.
How do you suggest we do that? You should have an answer.
Because
when it
I
gives the
believe Chris has failed to address the rehabilitation and securing of this building, as we gave him 3 weeks to do, and we should move forward with the ordinance.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, getting back to the fencing discussion, there was fencing discussed because the barricades would most likely, you'd have, for example, children that may be curious and
Right.
go over the barricades to the fencing. Chris, I believe, does have a valid point. He's gonna need access there if it's fenced off. I don't know if that was fencing that I've seen in the city on a project. You know, they have gates, so, I mean, he's talking ladders. He has to get the ladders in there. I think that's a reasonable request, and if he grants us the permission to put the fencing where it needs to go on to his property, it's a two-way street, so. Again, the thing that's in the back of my mind here, this is private property, so I'm not hesitant, but as a private property owner, he does have some rights. I do think it is imperative to secure the street. You know, we could get a foot of snow between here and Friday, and that roof project wouldn't take place because of the weather conditions. So it's imperative, regardless of what happens, to secure the street at this time. I am for granting him, so to speak, or working with him. What I think we need is some consideration, some collaboration, some cooperation, and he's demonstrated that he's willing to do that. If we want to put a deadline into a week from now that we expect to see the tarp, provided that weather conditions are adequate to do that, okay, I might have a different tone come back next week, and has not occurred. But I think, give him an opportunity, and work with him to secure it, and if he can secure it, okay.
Wait, I'm sorry, a second. John wanted to speak.
Okay.
John,
No,
you've got it covered?
no.
Yes?
Your motion on the 23rd did include fencing.
Yes, it did. Initially, that was not what the trustees asked for, but
Yeah,
that was
but it
what
did
they
include
proposed
it.
by the town.
Yep.
So what I missed here is if Stefan wants to put the fencing up, but wants to cooperate with Chris to let the ladders go in, how are you gonna do that? You're
Can't
gonna
do
have the
both.
town people install the fencing and then come back a day later and take it apart so that Chris
No.
can put his ladders up?
No, if you had heard me clearly, what I'd said, in a reference to city project that I'd seen, because I've been there many times, those fences have gates. They can padlock the gate, he can have a key, or we can have a key, or both of us can have a key. He has to get ladders and people in there to go up the side of the roof on the south side. That's reasonable, I mean,
So you see, so in other words, the fences would be able to.
Well, we don't know
Yeah.
that.
Well,
That's Wendy.
Chris, Stefan seems to know that.
Well, he doesn't know what the fence looks like that they
No, I
purchased.
don't.
Yeah, we weren't planning a gate, just, I
See?
mean, it's not supposed to be a permanent
Right.
structure. I mean, I wish Everett were here, but he's not.
Well-
I mean, one thing we could do, first of all, we need the owner's permission to put the fencing on the property, or you need to declare it a nuisance, one or the other. We could put the fencing just to the property line, which would be across the sidewalk, but that leaves it open for kids to go around the fencing. Mr. Glennon could pay for a gate, that might be reasonable.
what I'm looking to do is give him the means necessary to fulfill his obligation that he's mentioned, that he would take care of it. If that involves dismantling a piece or so, I don't know, with nuts and bolts to move it, so he can get people and equipment in there, I don't have a problem with that, as long as he secures it while he's done or in the interval.
It was just more work
Yeah.
for the highway crew, who are pretty
Yeah.
busy this time of year. And I guess it's unfortunate that we just heard about this now, which, I mean, it's too late to call the folks who are delivering the barriers in the morning. It would have been helpful to have known about this even, a couple days ago.
Right.
Because it is hard to stop. We were in motion to secure the street. That was the direction that we were given, was secure the street.
Right.
So,
Well,
we can do our best
yeah.
to be flexible.
I'm in agreement to secure the street, I don't have a problem with that, I'm just saying, he's asked for some cooperation from our side to accomplish the goal of securing that. I think it is a reasonable request, and I would think that if somebody else looked upon the matter, that they may see it as a reasonable request also, and I don't want to deny the opportunity to allow him to be able to do that. Like I said, if it's not done within the week that he's stated, I may take a different tone.
Well, technically, we have a 2-week lapse before our next meeting, unless we call
Well,
a
we could
special
always
one.
call a special meeting, and
Yes,
it's
we can.
certainly not gonna hurt, I mean.
That's true.
May I ask a question? By
Yes.
securing the street, we're looking at Jersey barriers.
Correct.
Is that correct?
And
that's
fencing.
all?
No, and fencing.
And fencing.
Right.
All right. It's
Fencing,
interesting
fencing,
because,
yeah.
in going back as many records as I can on the Grange and the Y and the church, no record of any kind of incidences, are ever recorded. Not saying they didn't happen, but historically, the children have played on those, snowbanks
Exactly.
since 1835.
Right.
And so, I think it's unfortunate that we have to secure the street.
Yeah, I think we all
That's
agree
all.
on that.
I think it's
Yeah.
unfortunate too. I don't want to spend the money.
Yeah,
Not
well,
neither do
unfortunately,
I.
the barriers are gonna be here, we're gonna incur a cost even if we don't have them installed at this point. They will be here.
Yeah.
People there's a, in the back of the audience.
Everything. I just have a question.
Sorry,
Once-
name, sir.
If Chris secures the roof.
I'm sorry, your
Sorry,
name,
please
sir?
state your
She
name.
needs-
Oh, well, Ed Ross.
Okay.
If the roof is secured, do they need the barriers and the fences? Once the roof. is
Once
put-
the roof is secured, but we have already moved forward, as Mr. Glennon is aware in our previous meetings, that we were going to be doing this.
Okay.
So, the roof has not been secured. At this point, it's still in an unstable situation.
Thank you.
Ron Lake, Police Chief, Village of Bellows Falls. And I am concerned for the safety. I am concerned, the building may have been here since 1835, and we've had no incidences. But tomorrow, if a piece of slate comes off and hits a child as it's walking by, we're all gonna be back here. Oh darn, we should have done something different. We need to approach this, and we need to approach this with the utmost safety, that it might happen tomorrow. Now, Friday, we've got snow, 3 to 6 coming. So we really need to think about doing something with this to secure this slate. Now, Mr. Glennon even himself said he hasn't picked up a piece of slate since August. Okay. Hasn't been since August. Thankfully, nobody's been there, nobody's gotten hurt. But it's when a child gets hit from 60 feet with a piece of slate, we're all gonna be back here and we're all gonna be saying, we should have done something different. That's it.
Yes, Chuck.
Chuck Wise, Town of Rockingham. So, I've been listening to conversations really centering on the slate shingles failing. The larger symptom, as one of the authors and chief, please tone in here, is the roof failure. The whole roof system is failing. Those joists are kicking out, the cross beams. That is an unstable structure. So putting this tarp over does solve those shingles. That's a very minor point in this what this report articulates.
We understand that's the cause.
Yeah.
The effect is the slate's coming off.
So we still have this issue, it's still outstanding, the tarp or not, so there has to be a detailed plan on how that structure is going to be addressed, stabilized some way, with definite timelines. There also has to be, and it can happen through this order, or it can happen in zoning, but there has to be a need to vacate that building immediately. Chris, there could be no occupancy of that building. We have interior ceilings that are failing. And so the push now is anybody that happens to be residing in there needs to leave. And whether we do that through zoning or whether we do it through this unsafe building ordinance, we're gonna get to that conclusion. And that's very important to see happen. So there has to be some, I think, some plan in place.
There's the
No,
plan.
this is not, no, that's not, yeah.
Oh,
No,
no.
but that's the plan. We requested that
That's part
3
A of
weeks
the
ago.
plan. Part B is gonna be
No,
how
Part
we're
B
gonna
is right here.
stabilize the structure. Yeah.
Part B's right there.
Let's call it Part C. So the roof shingles are not the issue, it's the structure itself is failing.
But you can't do part 2 unless part 1 is done. So you encapsulate the roof, and then you get in there and you do the reconstruction. That's the plan. That's the way it's done.
But we still don't have a complete plan on doing that.
Well,
And that's what we asked for. We wanted you to move forward to get, because you're putting a Band-Aid on the roof. But
temporary.
not fixing, yes, but that's one way to prevent these, an outside external exposure to the slate, but it doesn't do anything to keep the remaining slates from falling at some point when the tarp is to come on, until that's repaired, so. And that was
Well,
one
the
thing we
tarp
asked
would,
for.
the tarp would come off when basically.
Once the repair is done.
Once the repair is done.
Right, but we don't have a timeline on that, when those things would happen, so.
The,
Yes.
the interesting thing about this vote is that it does address what Chuck is calling
Mhm.
for.
It also gives a time, there is
And
time
it gives
allowed
it
in
a
that too.
specific time frame.
Yeah.
And I think that I think that given this that's been presented, and given what this spells out very clearly, I think it's only prudent that we pass this resolution.
I tend to agree with you. There was comment in the audience again.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm the sole inhabitant, the night watchman of the church, and I'm moving out in 1 week. And I find it, born and bred in the Northeast Kingdom and lived here for 3 years. I find it very curious that this building has been abandoned for 7 or 8 years, and you all have let it go downstream. And now that someone owns it and is gonna do something with it, you're giving them a hard time.
You're well aware this building is privately owned. It
Pardon?
only become privately owned. It was owned by the YMCA.
Yes, I know that.
They owned that building.
But
They
sold
released
it
that building to
7 years
Mr. Glenn.
ago.
Yes, but they released that building to Mr. Glennon 2 years ago. Unoccupied or occupied, the reality is there was an owner. The owner should have done something about it. The owner did not. The slate was not falling off at that time. It was noted by the school and
And who was
teachers.
the owner
So-
after the YMCA sold it?
Excuse me, sir. The YMCA released it to Mr. Glennon, as I understand.
No, not 7 years ago. They've been out of there 7, 8
But they
years ago.
still
Chris bought
own
it
the
2 years ago.
building, but they still own the building. No one was occupying the building, but they still own the building. It wasn't a problem then, it's a problem now. We
Yeah.
have to go with what we have at the time that it occurs, because it is not publicly owned by the town or village. So that is why. We're not trying to give Mr. Glennon a hard time, we are trying to address a matter of public safety. We
Okay.
need to do
Thank you.
that.
All right. Now, in my conversations with the YMCA board, and the director, there was a slate issue years ago, before I got involved.
And they did not address it, but
Correct.
but I had not heard any public concerns until this last 6 months.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's unfortunately the point at which the village has to step in and move forward.
All right.
And unfortunately, that deterioration by neglect, or demolition by neglect is one of the things that occurs to many buildings in the entire United States, everywhere in
Yeah.
the world, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But this is where we had to move in. Yes,
I'm going to make this motion
Yes,
and see what
please do.
happens. Do you want me to read it out, or?
I believe that's what you need to do, yes, to get it for the
I
record.
move that the Board of Trustees, per Chapter 10 of the Bellows Falls Village Code of Ordinance, adopt the findings of the committee report of the inspection of the building at 66 Atkinson Street dated 10/23/18. In accordance with Part 5 of Chapter 10, find that the building is a public nuisance, a dangerous building, and structurally unsafe. Order the building vacated per Section 6.B. Order the building repaired per Section 6.A to include shoring the roof structure within 30 days temporarily shore or complete the removal of the second floor ceiling within 15 days, permanently repair the framing systems within 3 months, permanently repair the roof envelope within 1 month of repairing the framing system, obtain independent verification and certification by a qualified Vermont licensed engineer or architect that this work has been completed. Order the owner to complete the following safety and security measures within 7 days. Secure the structure from public entry. Take measures to prevent public entry to the private parking area on the north side.
I need, entertain a second? From anyone? Right, I'll second it for public, for discussion. It's been moved and seconded. Anyone here have anything else to say?
I think some of these timelines are unrealistic. And to one point on the security measures, what's the reasoning for securing the parking lot on the north side? I'm unfamiliar with any issue that's going on that edge.
Is that a cut through?
All of that language was in the report. That's taken directly from the report.
I know, but-
I expect, I mean, Chuck can answer this, I expect it's just because slates could fall on that side, but here's the
Yes,
report.
Yeah. It's both sides of the roof. the
Right.
side. That there's, you would be right to hone in on that as having less of a public dimension to it, that structure, both sides. Restricting access, an area frequented by school children who don't always honor private property concerns, that would just seem like a prudent gesture.
Well, what are the measures that are, there's no recommendation here on how to do that. I mean, does a no trespass sign qualify as securing from public entry? Or are you saying that it needs to be fenced off?
I thought a physical barrier would be reasonable, but any type of notice or anything informing somebody of a roof failure will serve as well.
See, the problem with that is if you have little Johnny who's 6 or 7 years old and can't read that well, or can't read, that sign ain't gonna mean anything to him. So maybe a physical barrier or something that would be probably would work better.
You know, the kids don't play in the parking lot, they play in their park.
Yeah, I realize that, but you know, signs, can't read the sign, doesn't mean anything to you. My other concern is that, yeah, we could get a 3 to 6 inches of snow on Thursday or Friday, and we might not. If this isn't accomplished within the time frame that he had talked about, the week, for all I know, next Tuesday we could get a foot of heavy wet snow, and I would probably dare say, structurally, I don't know how many pounds of heavy wet snow away. I can ask an engineer, but where I'm at, we have steel beams. So these are some wooden structures that, by the pictures here, have evidently failed or are failing, and/or are failing. So I don't know if if we got a heavy snow load on that, heavy wet snow storm, would the whole roof come down at all or not? I don't know. I want to work with the owner, but we do have some legitimate concerns to protect our interest, which is the public safety. And, I understand weather can be a hindrance, but I mean, something has to be done on both sides. We have to secure the street for the public safety, and like I said, I'm willing to give them the week. We can build that into the motion or something, regardless of what the weather is.
Motion gives them longer than that,
Well, I'm just saying to do his part that he talked about with the tarp, and then this can follow concurrently.
By doing this, we have the right to install the fence, so
Mhm.
that's a good thing about this. And it's obviously spelled out things that the owner has to do, so it's pretty clear.
I mean, is it unheated at the moment, or? So if you get an unheated building with a lot of snow load, unless we get some sun, most likely the snow stays up there, doesn't come off, and
Wendy, did you have something?
Just a quick thing, the report did include a recommendation to require the owner to secure the street. But I did not include that in the motion because
We
the
already
town and the village
moved to
are
do that.
Yeah.
proceeding to do that, but just so that you
Right.
know that that was intended to be part of the recommendation.
Right, okay. Is there any further discussion? All right. All right, do you have the motion in mind? It's pretty long, and everyone has a copy of it in front of them. So, with the motion in mind, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, those opposed?
No.
Nay.
Motion fails.
So what
I-
motion are you gonna make?
That's what I was exactly going to just, I was gonna say. I'd like to make the motion at this time that we move forward with securing the street, allowing Mr. Glennon to maintain access on his private property to do the repairs. That we revisit this issue at the 27th,
Our next meeting?
our next board meeting, it's November 27th, I believe. And at which time,
26,
when,
next meeting.
at the next board meeting. At which time we'll readdress this with the property owner in reference to what needs to be, what was done and what may need to be done further.
And if necessary, probably what hasn't been done yet. So, that's my thoughts.
Anyone have
Yeah.
a second for that?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Wendy?
Yeah, we don't have permission to go onto the property.
At this point, we don't have, you can either freestand the fence next to his property, which would allow passage, or you can just put up the abutments.
If I
That's
may.
all you have left.
If I may, let's just ask Chris. Chris, can we have your permission here verbally tonight to secure fencing on your property to cordon off this section of the street?
I have no problem with that, just the placement of the fence.
Because of no access to that side of the
I
building.
need access.
Provided
So it
that-
sounds like a gate, so
We
we'll
need a
just,
gate.
that'll add to the cost,
Quick question.
okay?
I know the gating is up at the, Lake Street. And I'm sure, not
Right,
sure,
we
but
have
I
the
believe
fencing, yeah.
when the gating's put up like they had it around
Okay.
7-Eleven, I believe there's things that you can pop up, slide the gate open, and access. I
Right.
don't believe there needs to be a gate, I believe, because
You
it's
need
not
to provide
screwed to the
access.
pavement.
Right, so the fence itself may be able to be taken apart.
Exactly.
And I'm not
Okay.
aware of that, so hopefully that's the case and we won't need a gate, but
Okay,
it-
so
we
then
we
it's-
do need explicit
So
permission to.
so it's just portable sections with a T on the base.
I'm
Basically,
assuming
yes.
so, I have not looked at it thoroughly.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
I don't wanna assume that.
So
Right,
would
I don't
you,
wanna-
so would you
Well, I'm
therefore
just trying to
give
get
us-
an idea
Right,
of
no, I
what the
understand that.
fence is.
But
So
that's
would you
all.
give us permission to do that, as long as you have access to the side of the
Yes.
building? Yes, we
Yes.
do have his verbal permission.
And we would expect it, I don't want to be after, but I would expect that to be secured no matter what time. I mean, once you get in there, you're doing your work, you secure it so it's not open, so if some curious,
Correct.
yep,
Yeah,
that's, I
that's
think
fine,
reasonable.
Stefan, yeah.
So we have that motion. I'd also like to ask, does the zoning administrator have a vacate order out on this building?
If this doesn't pass tonight, then I will move on through zoning to do a vacate order.
Okay.
So that'll be handled. In your motion, I didn't quite catch it, are we being specific in needing the guidance, the plan, of how this is gonna be structurally shored up, timeframe, et cetera? Are we gonna move in that direction?
I would qualify that what we've received tonight does not meet what we've previously asked for, and that still stands. That we will readdress this issue in 2 weeks in reference to having a detailed plan, in reference to, the shoring of the roof structure, the shoring of the ceiling, and all of those,
That's for the next
those
meeting.
individual points that we've given you, that have been addressed in the engineering report that need to be addressed.
So at this point, we're only looking at.
Well, as you said,
2-week period.
Jonathan, too, a lot of them were unrealistic. On the whole list that Jim brought up.
On the list that
Totally
we have, Chris, the list that we were, that was the motion that Jim made, yes.
Right.
I'm giving you an opportunity here to draw up a
Oh,
detailed
yes,
timeline
okay. Yeah.
and say, this is what is realistic for me, and we can look at that. Maybe it works with what the town and the village need to have done, maybe it doesn't. But this addresses no timeline here for a majority of the points that need to be dealt with.
remember the dates were included with the engineer's report.
Yes.
So this,
3 weeks
this,
ago.
this motion is not just pulling it out of the air. This is
I know.
specific information from an engineer who has the experience to understand what that structure's like. So I just wanna be clear that all we are motioning is the allowance of 2 weeks for him to get the tarp up and the fencing to be put out. And with this, and all of this information will be readdressed at the next meeting. Okay.
Do we know what kind of liability the village is opening itself up to if something happens and you knew about it and nothing was?
But we are putting the fencing up and we are putting the barriers up, so we
But
will
he's
be
gonna
protecting the
have
public.
Ladders up there too.
But
That's
it's
his-
a
that's-
privately owned building.
Right.
Anyone who owns their own building can go out and DIY it, and if they are injured in that
And the ladders are gonna
attempt,
be on the street.
right,
That's not privately owned.
if it falls, if it falls into the street? Well, that's what the fencing and the barriers are for, to cut off the north side of the
I mean,
street.
somebody, if something falls from that building and somebody gets hit with something,
Mhm.
and
That's what
we
the
know about
fencing's
it.
for.
But wouldn't that be on his insurance and not the village's?
not if we.
Because it's a
It should
privately
be.
owned house?
It should be,
You're
That's
assuming
correct.
he has insurance.
right, that's a different
Liability
assumption.
insurance.
Liability, you have a liability insurance on the building.
He's previously stated that.
Okay. All right, so could you please reread John's motion so that we can take action?
Secure the street, allow access to do repairs, and revisit at the November 27th meeting, at which time they'll readdress the situation.
Okay, so everyone having that motion in mind, anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay, one opposed, motion carries. All right, so we will see you in 2 weeks. And I
Okay.
will hope
All
for,
right.
hope for no snow,
Or
so that you
come
can
and
get
see
your
me-
work done.
Come and see me anytime.
All right.
You too, be careful.
Yep. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so,
You're up.
moving on, we come to item number 2, water, wastewater departments. I'm sorry, are you folks still hashing something out? Yeah.
No,
So Rob Wheeler and Brian Jocelyn to review bids for vehicle purchases and approve purchase.
Yes, and we're coming back to the board with additional quotes. You received the additional quotes in your packet. The previous quote turns out to have been the lowest one.
We got one quote in our packet and one quote tonight.
Nope.
Is that correct?
Nope. We have all 3 quotes.
All 3 quotes.
Where,
But-
actually, MHQ,
Yep.
MHQ,
Well, first
GM
we're
and
talking
Ford.
we're talking the
GM and Ford came tonight. We didn't get
water
them
and
till
wastewater.
now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They weren't in the packets, they were,
Well, they were emailed, or the
The Ford you had at the previous.
previous meeting.
Yeah,
right,
so you had that a month ago.
Right.
okay.
We should have included it in the packet
Well, didn't
that
you,
went out last week.
did you email anything in the last 48 hours?
In the
Not
last
this.
48 hours, we got what
Last
is
Friday.
technically the third.
Okay, last Friday, that one.
Could I suggest that the gentleman make their recommendation and the bottom line cost?
Great idea.
That would be,
Can I make a motion?
Sure can.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this discussion until we get the information that we've requested on purchasing for vehicles. We've asked for a detailed inventory of our rolling stock for both water, wastewater, and the police department prior to making decisions on this. And we still don't have an idea exactly of what we have, what condition our fleet vehicles are in, when we don't have a maintenance plan on these new vehicles that are coming in. And we don't, we're bypassing the information that we asked for several weeks ago, or you're asking us to make a decision when we have incomplete information that we've asked for.
Do you want to review the vehicles?
well, I won't
There's only
second
2
that
vehicles.
because we've
There wasn't a
known
motion.
about, we've been, 3 of us have been involved in the budgeting and we've known about this for a year. And I think to further delay this would be just irresponsible.
Well, I'll second it for the purposes of
Wait, was there,
discussion.
is that actually a motion to
Yeah, I
table?
made a motion to table this and.
Okay. No, he did not. He
Jim
said
did
he
not.
wouldn't.
No.
But Steph
Stephanie
did.
Yeah, I'll second it for discussion.
as I recall, someone had one of the trustees, at least here, if not two, had some discussion about purchasing equipment when we have a deficit in wastewater and concerns over water. Am I mistaken? Did I have a dream, or was that not true?
Yeah, that sounds like it.
Well, it's true.
I'm more concerned over getting a handle on what we have, what it's gonna cost us down the line. Having maintenance schedules in place and ready to go, and not just doing what the town or the village has always done. And it's just buy a truck, and when it needs to get fixed, you fix it, and then at whatever period, it's, we need a new one. So I would prefer to have a plan on what's gonna happen with the vehicles that we have and any vehicles coming into the fleet, so that we can plan for, one, their maintenance over the course of their lifetime, and two, their replacement down the road.
Is it a 5-year schedule? You're in a 5 years?
Well, the last time
They
we
passed down a
purchased
5-year schedule.
Right.
last-
was 7-year
7
schedule
years.
when we bought the last one, but we pushed it last year. But that's 7 years, 8 years ago, the board has all changed. So that, you set up a policy 7, 8 years ago, and everybody's on board with it, and then it changes again. It'll change next year, because the board changes, you know what I mean? It's just tough.
But
Unless
policies
it-
don't change.
Well, yes,
No,
they
they-
put on
Board votes.
purchasing. Yes.
If the board doesn't wanna do something, then it changes the policy.
Rob, what do you do, let me ask, then I'll ask the same question to Brian
No, that's fine.
also. What do you guys do right now? I mean, how often do you do your oil changes?
I try to change the oil every 3 months because the vehicles are low mileage
Right.
around town.
Okay.
So, does that happen every 4 months? No, or 3 months, 4 months? I try to
Okay.
do that, do the oil changes, rotate the tires.
Yeah,
I think last year I did the transmission flush
yeah,
on the 11, just because, it's typically the one that we plowed with. So, other than that, I mean,
okay. So you have a plow on this vehicle?
there is a plow on the 11, but
Do you-
the 12 also has, they both have push frames.
Do you flush the hydraulics on that plow?
I've had the plow serviced
Okay.
down, and we're keeping the plow, we're not trading that in.
Okay,
So that's part of the ongoing maintenance of these things. I also have the pickups oil undercoated every year.
Okay.
I've had that since time
So you are
began.
doing something?
Oh, yeah, no, I do it we do it
Okay.
even to the 10-wheeler, I mean, it's
Yeah.
sitting, so.
All I'm asking for
But-
here is putting that down in writing so that we have a maintenance schedule. We can attach prices in line with that maintenance schedule so that there is an actual cost per vehicle that's calculated out, so that we can, that we as taxpayers, ratepayers, know what these things are actually costing, and that there's a plan and that we have it. Just as you say, the policy changes as the board changes, well, the policy changes as the departments change as well, with people coming in and coming out. It's hard to keep fluid, so this is one of those tools that, when it's developed and in place, allows continuity between both the department heads and the boards on what we're doing. And we have a considerable investment in rolling stock in the village.
I understand.
I'm not saying no, I'm just saying, let's get a really good idea on what we have when we make these purchases. At this point, we have a $300,000 deficit in wastewater,
We don't have a deficit in
or not a
wastewater.
deficit, no.
We do not have a deficit in wastewater.
We have a cash shortfall.
Okay, so
I'll
we have a
move the
cash
question.
Shortfall.
shortfall.
Okay.
I'll move the question.
Oh,
Yeah.
move the question on table.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. That motion fails.
Can I just ask staff to speak also to the urgency? I understand, we're working on schedules for the town and for the village, and we did give you a schedule in the first round of this. I know it wasn't as detailed as you want. Perhaps they can speak to the mileages, I don't know those off the top of my head. But there is an urgency to this because of work that needs to be done on the water vehicle. And if we don't purchase the vehicle before the winter, then we're going to have to do some work that's basically going to be a waste of money. So can you, want to
What's
please
the, what's
explain
the
that?
recommendation?
What do you want first?
Can they just
What's the
explain the
urgency, Brian?
urgency?
Yes.
What's that? What's the urgency?
The frame on the service body is broken. We have it tied down now, but that's just a temporary fix. Now, if we don't get a new truck, then we definitely gotta get it fixed, and it's $1,600 to take that body off, weld it, then put it back. But if we switch trucks, you're gonna pay the same amount, but they'll pick it up, weld it, and put it on a new truck. So it's $1,600 extra if we don't go with
But you're
another
saying
truck.
not the body, the frame of the physical cab and chassis of the box.
Iroquois box, the
Of the
Reading
Iroquois
box.
box, yeah,
Yes, the frame, right where one of the bolts that holds it down is broken.
right. So, I mean, I don't have any problem with any of the department heads here making their presentation and and/or recommendations tonight. I will state that although in the past at times we have had a purchasing or equipment schedule, there at times has been where the board, because of the proposed increase in funding or the use of capital monies, elected to not do a purchase or put a purchase off. So I would like to hear, if it's all right, what the presentation is, what the trade-in value is they're talking, and what we're looking at potentially here, if we were to make a purchase.
The trade-ins are on the
Yeah, I'm
quote.
gonna assume
I read
that
that.
the two vehicles.
The recommendation that I think Brian and both we have is that we go with the
Looks like-
Fate
Face
Forward.
Toyota, cause that's $20,000 a truck.
Yes.
basically. That's what we're
And
And
that
the
gives you,
budget
and that
for
breaks you the trade down, that gets it under budget, that makes, you still gotta switch over the body,
Yep,
you gotta fix the body.
allows
But
that.
what-
So it allows that. Mileage on the vehicle, I just did service, I think it was 35 on one and 30, or 37 on one and 33 on the other.
And what
Just-
years, if you could highlight that?
2011 we'll be getting rid of,
Okay, what-
2010.
Yeah.
And what are they giving us for the 11, and what are they giving
It
us?
says right here.
It's all right here.
On
It's all on
trade-in
here.
number one, which is a 2011 truck, they're giving us 13,000. And then on the 2010, they're giving us 9,500.
95.
That's
Really?
got about 58,000.
To be honest with you, I think they could do a lot better than that. I've been at a Ford dealership just recently, looking at years that were older than this with 100,000 miles, and they want 17, 18 grand for a truck.
What do we budget for these vehicles? In this
We put 25 in
In each.
each
20.
department.
I tried to get more because we
Yeah.
have all the switchover, so it's gonna be tight either way.
But the total here is under 40,000 for the two,
For
right?
two, right.
And that includes switching the body over?
No,
No.
The
So that's
16
an additional 1,600.
Okay,
And
so
the
still within
lights.
budget.
yeah.
And again, if, there's also the consideration that if we'd like to do things about our, whatever our perceived deficit or non-deficit, that once these are purchased, we wouldn't necessarily consider purchasing in the following year. If we do it now, and it's been budgeted to do so. And yes, you make a 5-year plan, and then the boards say, no, we don't want you to spend the money. So that happens.
We pushed them a year.
Yeah, push them out.
From the 7-year.
Right, last year we put them in the, for
It was in the
replacement,
budget last year,
and we pushed it.
But we
Right,
didn't.
right.
use-
Yeah.
Right, we did,
exactly.
we pushed it for another year, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that's why.
I'm
So
okay-
with the-
I'm okay with what the board recommends.
With since we've got two different budgets here, what is the number for the water department? Including all the stuff you have to do?
The switchover with the new body, and so then they have to take the old truck and put that body back on, it's $2,200. Whatever we have
We
to
could be
do
getting
for
more.
lights and radios, which I don't think is gonna be a real lot.
So you're within the 25,000?
It's gonna be right on the borderline.
And you're within the 25,000?
You
Oh,
should
yeah,
be under.
yeah, I'll be under. I don't believe, I wanna
9,500 for
do a
2010.
box and a headache rack for it, and then different lights, because the light bar that we have now is in the middle, and you can't really use the rack to put a ladder or haul pipe
Oh.
in the middle, because the light's in the way, so I'd rather put the two little lights off to the side, but that's, yeah, it'll be well within the 25. And I wanna say mine ended up with 28, and it may have been just a mix-up of adding it to
Yeah, that was
the
probably the
water
three I
instead of
wanted.
mine, but yeah.
The budget
I asked
ended up
for
The
at
budget, I
28.
think it ended up 28 for the wastewater and 25 for the water, if I remember correctly,
Yeah,
in our budget.
and I'd
I
asked
don't
for
know,
the
I don't have
extra.
one, an actual detailed budget thing, but It may have just been a,
It looked,
Mine's 25.
it
Yeah,
looked
I
to
think
me like it was
mine's
25 for both.
yeah,
One
I
of
think
them was
Robbie's
higher.
is
They were
28.
different.
Were they different?
Yes, and this isn't as clean as I would prefer it to be.
So- So you're recommending the Faith Toyota, and of course,
Yes.
clearly I would do the same. If anyone would like to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? John?
I would still like to see a little better planning on this before we go forward. But, like, I mean, however that is, you know, I just don't think, this is one of my big goals for getting elected. This is one of the things I talked about very much when I was running for trustee, is planning. And planning so that we don't make the same mistake that continually happens, and that is not planning. You know, whether it's planning the budget, whether it's planning on maintenance, those things pay off. They seem like a pain in the butt, and they seem like they're not worth it. I know how it is, because I've had to do it before. But in continuity, between boards that change every year, between managers that change, that have been changing frequently, you know, with personnel that changes, it's a constant that everyone can take, that can carry forward with them and be like, you know, this is what we're doing, this is our vehicle policy. Now, when it gets to that 6 or 7 year point, it's time to trade in. Just like the oil changes, maybe not happening every 3 months, and then maybe it happens every 4. You know, we may have to make financial decisions that slide that around a little bit. But having that plan is better than not having that plan,
right.
is my thought in general.
Stefan, do you have anything?
Yeah, I certainly would like to see a better allotment reference to trade-in value. I mean, I've been out there looking, and I've seen stuff like I just stated,
Right, but
100,000.
you're trading in what they resell it for.
Oh,
That's-
yeah.
That's what they make money. If you've ever traded a vehicle.
Well, no, I realize
You
that.
don't get what they're gonna sell it for.
No, you don't, but I bet you these are already sold probably before they got there, just like the last ones.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know, but I mean, I'm sure the 2010 will show up on
Let's
there for
move the
15 or
question.
16, I
Can I have
mean.
one question?
Right.
Yeah.
Did they say how long it'll take to locate the second truck?
At the time of this quote, they had both trucks,
Okay.
but I believe one of them is now missing or gone. So they'll have to make it work. And I just talked to them last Friday, as I dropped my trucks off and everything was still, the numbers were still true, so.
Last comment, there's a person in the audience.
Yeah, I just want to make the recommendation to go along with Rob's recommendation. I've known him my whole life, and he's done a great job managing. And go with the new trucks. I change snow blowers every 3 years, lawn tractors every 3 years, because a working truck, you cannot afford to have it breaking down. And trucks that are used to plow snow, anything, you gotta have them up to date and running. So, and if it's in his budget, I would vote that you let him have his truck. And I believe there's other areas in your village budget that you can cut to make up the difference.
Well, we're going to move this question, but I'm actually shocked, Mr. Reese, that you would come forward and say, let's buy something,
Yes.
when you spend a lot more time saying, let's not buy
Well, he-
something.
Because I
Goes
believe we
both
can
ways.
save in other areas.
Right, but then again, everyone has their own opinion. Okay, we're gonna move the question. Everyone have the motion in mind? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
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 All right, it's unanimous, we're all set. Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Now, to another vehicle. Actually, we probably should get that one out of the way, but we can't, because it's not number one. Number 3 on the agenda is Police Department. I know, he couldn't stay, yeah. Chief Lake, first of all, discussing Neighborhood Watch Program.
Neighborhood Watch is alive and well in the village of Bellows Falls. There is no organized neighborhood watch, but people call, people see things. This is very well protected community. The people of this community look out for one another. I can give you examples. Last week before last, there was an incident right at Red Light Hill where a white pickup truck with New Hampshire registration went through crosswalk. There was an individual on the crosswalk. We actually received a video and were able to enhance the video, get the vehicle the license plate number, and we were able to issue a ticket based on that information. We've had many incidents where individuals observe a crime or observe something that does not look right and contact the police department. A neighborhood watch is alive and well here. Either you call 1233, 1234, or 460-2373 with your information. It's alive and well.
But it's not formalized.
It is absolutely not formalized. I have stayed away from a formal neighborhood watch program. If you watch our national news, you'll see it for yourself. There's way too many incidences of a formal neighborhood watch program getting out of hand. And I don't agree with a formal neighborhood watch program. I'd just soon have your information than have armed citizens out trying to be police officers.
Anyone have anything on this? I mean, I know that I'm the person who put it on here, and my reasoning for do that is to make our citizens feel proactive. We've had, over the summer and into fall, we've had problems with handhandling, with people walking into people's hallways, corridors, urinating, defecating, sleeping in their halls. Some of them feel powerless because despite the fact that an order may be issued to keep that person out of that building, piece of paper. And they may or may not call with their frustrations. They definitely post it on Facebook. When they're upset about things, they come up to my office and talk to me about stuff like this. I want them to feel empowered that they can do something, that they feel formalized, that they can do something. We realize the panhandling is not gonna happen since it's been revoked in Brattleboro, so not likely to happen here because despite the fact that people are doing things that are offensive and upsetting to many of our community members, they have human rights. And because of those rights, there's only so much that can be done. People feeling powerless when officers do something, but then the person comes back. What can be done to keep that from happening? I want them to feel safe. I do believe that I feel safe in my community, but others do not. And I would like to make sure that we take every action to make that happen.
What about, the Coffee with a Cop was happening, I'm not sure if that's still scheduled, but, outreach and having the police go into the community and, be there.
We have, the individual, without using any names,
I am.
and I will not use any names, we have exhausted, not only in this community, but that same individual has exercised his God-given right in Brattleboro, in Springfield, Bellows, the village of Bellows Falls. Every one of those communities has brought criminal charges against that individual for trespassing. Every one of those communities. And we have tried everything, and things have changed. Things have changed in our, the individual's rights have to be protected. And although we may not like what's going on, and the incidences of trespass, there's still cases that have to be heard in this matter related to trespass. We tried everything we could with the social worker to get the individual help. The individual refuses the help. We cannot force the issue, but we still try. Now we're doing a different route in criminal cases where we arrest the individual and we charge them with disorderly conduct. We charge them with unlawful trespass. And we will continue to do everything we can. And yes, I absolutely want people to call the police. If they think it's wrong, it probably is. And we should be called to deal with the situation.
We're dealing with the rights of the person who is offending people in our own community, not others, but that's up to their communities to deal with those. But not the rights of the people who are asking that person not to be available. And I'm not just talking about one. Winter's coming upon us. We have, everyone who lives in the village probably notices other people who we have never seen before, who are now in the village. Happens every fall to winter when we come upon the season of cold, that we had not seen before, because we have a shelter that is opening this week. And because of that, we see new people in our neighborhoods who do not necessarily have a regular place to reside. So you can speak of one person, but it's not the only one. And the rights of the people who live in this village are not necessarily protected because a trespass order doesn't make them feel safe. And that was my concern. And I will continue to bring it up periodically as people complain or are upset and disturbed to be in their own homes, because they can be trespassed upon without their rights being protected.
Deb,
Yes.
can I make a comment on this? Chief, I'd like to thank you for coming in tonight, and I would also like to point out, I don't think this is a one-item discussion. This is, I mean, this goes beyond a single individual. This goes to property crimes, breaking and entering, you know, all of that. And there is a growing concern in our community, or a growing feeling in our community of insecurity. You know, one of those things, and it may be a placebo, but even just having some outreach with the police department through, whether you call it a neighborhood watch program or whether you call it a community policing program, to be able to have some type of visual signs as a deterrent may be helpful. So, you know, people are asking us for these things. They're asking for some sense of security that over the last couple of years has seemed to somewhat been slowly eroded by, you know, these individual little bursts of property crimes that have occurred here and there. And quite, you know, it just makes people a little uneasy. I mean, I'll admit to being, you know, to my family being a victim to one of them that happened last winter, and your officers responded very quickly. But you know, when my wife got home from work and it was dark at 5 o'clock in the middle of winter, and someone was in the alley between my house and my neighbor's house looking in my windows, she unfortunately confronted them, and they ran off. But I told her I would much prefer you not to confront that and to just call the police department. Now, those, you know, and she still feels very insecure. If I'm not home, all the doors are locked in the house. And we have 3 dogs. You know, she just, you know, those little things that happen in our community, whether it happens to someone individually or whether it's just something that is noticed or that happens and gets around through the media about a breaking and entering, or, you know, it erodes that sense of security that one has in their own place. And I think this may be, you know, whether you call it a neighborhood watch program or maybe we just start looking at a little bit of outreach that can help rebuild that a little bit, and to offer some security, some peace of mind for some people that would want that.
Okay, thank you.
When somebody dials the tips line, Ron, Chief, how does that work? Does that go to the sheriff's department? Does it go to a
No, it
message
goes right into
taker?
my office.
Goes right into your office?
Right into my office.
Okay.
The answering machine is right in my office.
Okay. So if they have something that's up front and needs immediate attention, they should
They
dial the
should be
1, 2,
done.
3, 4.
Yes, oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, anyone else? All right, I guess we've covered that topic for now. B, review bids for the police cruiser and approve purchase. So we do have all 3 bids here.
Right, on this one, right, you don't have the schedule, that would be helpful of replacement, but you do have the bids and the recommendations.
Gary?
I would like to see some quotes on not just 3 different places for a Ford vehicle, Dodge, Chevy, just like we got from the water and wastewater.
Yeah, I believe there isn't as much flexibility, but
It's more money. It's more money for a Chevrolet, and it's, for a Dodge vehicle, there's, after you order the vehicle, they then have to ship it off for upfitting to a law enforcement package, and then they ship it to have the light package put on it. A lot more. This is simple. You buy the car from the individuals that equip the lights on the vehicle. It's not, you buy it from one place, you then, you have it manufactured in Detroit, and then you sit on a rail car for 3 months, and then they ship it back east, and then it goes to a place that installs the lights in it, and you get it 6 months from now or more. This is these recommendations for this location, they have the cars right there, they're waiting for the order. They can put the lighting package on the car right there, they can have it for us in 2 weeks. I've looked, the GM vehicles are more expensive, a lot more expensive.
So you're saying Ford's cheap?
I'm saying
I know
they're
I
less
have to buy Chevy.
expensive, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying they're cheap, I'm saying they're less expensive. In my experience here in the village of Bellows Falls, with a General Motors vehicle, we have to go to, for the factory work, well, the last one that we had to go to Keene. If we have a Ford, we take it down to Durand. If the Faith. And if that was a Dodge dealership, I'd go to Dodge. If that was a Chevrolet dealership, I would like to go, but it's all about the money. And I only have just so much money. And the reason why I don't look at GM vehicles is because they're that much more money.
Okay, are we trading anything in, or are we rotating something around, or what are we
Trade?
doing?
No, this is this cruiser is to replace the '05 pickup truck. On the 5-year replacement program that we've had for several years, the engine went on the '05 in June. In any case, it's been sitting out behind the police fire facility since the engine went.
Well, we probably ought to get it on Auctions International and get the hell out of there.
Make something for it.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion to move that the Bellows Falls Village Trustees accept the bid from CMG Colonial Municipal Group for the 2018 Ford Police Interceptor vehicle in the amount of $38,592.50, and authorize municipal manager to sign any and all documents necessary.
I'll second it.
So this is everything. Bottom line, we don't need anything extra. What about painting?
It's white.
No, I mean, like putting police on it.
It's not gonna have police on it.
Okay. John?
I'm just gonna go back to what I said on the other two vehicles. This is actually the one where having a maintenance schedule really concerns me. These vehicles, the 3.7 liter V6 twin turbo that you want, aren't these EcoBoost?
Whoa, wait a minute.
The TIs.
I don't want anything with a turbocharged engine in it, and if there is one with a turbocharged engine
Isn't
in
the
it.
TI VCT, isn't that the EcoBoost twin?
It's the EcoBoost engine, no turbocharged
Okay.
engines.
Because
I have one.
therein lies the problem with cruisers that run idle for long periods of time.
And you're absolutely correct. Our cruisers right now with 50,000 miles on them, because of their idle time and so on, have the lifespan right now of about 180,000 miles. We change the oil every 3,500 miles. J&M Auto does it. We have all the factory work done right at Faith Ford that's required. All the recalls, everything, we take it right down there. But J&M Auto does our transmission services, does our oil changes with synthetic motor oil. Everything that J&M can do, we have done at J&M. Everything else is factory, needs to be done at the Ford garage, is done at the Ford garage. I'm sure we can break it out. I can get finance office to pull out the maintenance records of every vehicle for the lot, but
It's going forward. It's not going backwards that we're looking at. It's going forward for future planning. And it's going forward for costing for future budget discussions. And that's what I'm trying to get to, is having more information to make better informed decisions moving forward. And I think that in general, that should be a policy from all the future boards for the village of Bellows Falls, is having up-to-date, accurate information and making the most informed decisions available.
I agree.
Any further discussion on the vehicle? And we have Everyone has the motion? Okay, in that case, all those in favor? Say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay, okay, one opposed, motion carries. You have your vehicle.
Thank you.
All right, last, under Police Department, accept grant for traffic safety patrol.
Yes, let me just start out by saying I wasn't sure if this needed to come to the Board of Trustees, but on the erring on the side of caution, I have brought it to you. The chief can explain it, it's limited, there's really no obligation on the part of the village to provide these services, but if we do provide them, we are compensated for both the officer and the vehicle.
Yes. This is Governor's Highway Safety Funds. This is the first time in 10 years as chief that I have gotten involved in this program. This may put an extra officer on the road to be compensated for hunting intoxicated drivers or driver safety issues, for instance, cell phone violations, speeding violations, to the work to be done right here in the greater Bellows Falls area. I don't have no intentions of being involved in a program that sends Bellows Falls police cruisers to Brattleboro, Dover, Wilmington, or anywhere else. We are compensated at an overtime rate for the officer. We're compensated for the mileage put on the cruiser, and we will be patrolling this area. I wouldn't do it if it didn't save us money, if it didn't help us in the greater good of the community.
So the question is, there'd be no out-of-pocket cost for the village, but there's a potential for some revenue to come in.
Yes,
Is that it?
yes, you're correct.
And the revenue potential is from the fines?
The fines related to the speed enforcement, stop sign violations, and anything else that may come about as a result of enforcement action.
Are those fines pooled since this is administered by the sheriff's department? Do they take or do we receive 100% of the total fine package?
Whatever is returned will come back to the community. We don't share it with anyone else. The sheriff's department's involvement, it's different than what it's ever been in history. This is a new program put on by the state of Vermont. Normally, individual agencies have a highway safety grant. Now there's an option of pooling the funds and have one entity deal with all the paperwork, if you will.
Yeah.
We deal with just our reporting, and it's submitted. They will do all the processing of the paperwork and the submission to highway safety. This is also being done in Rutland County, Windsor County, all throughout the state of Vermont. There's one entity that's dealing with the entire highway safety grant funds for the county. An agency, now Bellows Falls, I could say, no, I don't want to become a part of it, and I could say that I want to administer it. No, I don't. This just makes life easier for everyone, and we get to reap the benefits of it.
And just, it should be said that it increases safety on the road, which maybe you did, but that's important.
So we're looking at a total grant package here of $8,600.
Yes.
Can you describe to us how does that relate to, other than offsetting some costs, how does that relate to the number of hours that will afford us to be able to have that officer on that DUI operation or on that offended driver?
Well, if we exhaust that $8,600 and there's still more funds in the grant, say for instance, the Brattleboro Police Department didn't use their funds or the Sheriff's Office didn't use their funds, we can apply for and receive more funding. The officer will be out patrolling, looking for specifics. They're not going to turn their head to anything, but they'll be looking for intoxicated or people under the influence, or they'll be, for instance, during the day looking for speeders looking for cell phone violations. It's a win-win for
This will
this
be-
community.
This will be inside of our community or outside of our community?
The greater village of Bellows Falls. We may be out on 103, we may be on Route 5 in Westminster, we may be on Route 121. Like I said, I wasn't gonna send my officers to Brattleboro, I'm not gonna send them to Wilmington or Dover. I've already made it clear I intend to limit them to right here in this area.
Well, let me ask you though. At times I've seen Dover cars here, I've seen
Yes.
Brattleboro. Will they be sending cars here?
They may very well. I've just made it clear that I don't intend to send my cars down there,
Okay.
so,
And it won't take away from regular patrols.
no.
This is overtime only and at the option of the officers.
Okay, if I may, Mr. Reese.
I don't know if this follows under this category, but I've been going over the police department budget, and not to be disrespectful to Lon. If you looked at the fire department, it has 22 breakdowns of what the calls were and everything. This is unacceptable from the police chief to me, his annual report. It says 3,394 or 3,616 calls. 222 were arrests. What were the other 3,394 calls? Is there a breakdown that we answered emergency medical assistance, 300, went to traffic violations? I looked at the budget, I'm sorry, not to be disrespectful, I believe this community, the police department budget should be $900,000. And I would recommend ordering the chief to bring it down to $25,000 per year to get it back down to $900,000. When I look at the gas usage of $17,000, you're talking, if you put $150 in a cruiser, every week, there's 52 weeks, that's $7,800 of gas. We're going 1.3 square miles. Once in a while, he may have to go to Bradford or another police department. These numbers are totally unacceptable when I've gone through his budget. And another thing I'll say now, I've spent over $12,036.89 to live in this community. The chief is not impacted by his budget, he does not live in the village. How many police officers actually live in this village? You might have 2. So we're paying for something I think we could save a lot of money. And I'm sorry that I had to say it, but I believe we can police 1.3 square miles. And community policing does work, because when my neighbor Bruce Bennett goes on vacation, he asks me to watch his house. I have never locked my door in this community in 30 years. And you know what? I have nothing. If they want to steal it, they can steal it, because there's nothing there. I own about $300 of cash, okay? Neighbors watch neighbors. So this fear factor of all this is happening in the drugs, that's the DEA's responsibility and the Vermont State Police to keep heroin from getting to small towns. We don't need a K-9 unit, period. The police chief spoke last year at the meeting. He says, if marijuana gets legalized, the dog's no good. Well, that changed. I remember when he was hired 10 years ago. He's gonna do community policing. I've never seen somebody walk down door to door. So I'm sorry, I'm just not feeling I'm getting my buck for what this is costing now.
Yeah, I recall, I've already spoken to you
Okay.
at a
Yeah,
previous
the
meeting,
annual
and,
meeting.
simply said,
Okay.
we have budget meetings coming up in 2019. You want to attend those, if you want to make
I'd like
suggestions
to.
concerning those budgets, it's open to the public, you're more than happy to do so. Thank you. Yes, Gary.
Are we gonna have a separate line on our reports of the money coming in for this program?
We
Or is
could,
it-
if you would like
I
that.
mean, it definitely would
We
be
would track it.
handy to track it and
Uh-huh.
see it.
The money comes in, the accounting line would be better if we knew it was separated from something else, right, as income.
Yeah, we
This
would
for
want to
this
keep
program.
track of the expense too, because,
Right.
or first, I mean,
Absolutely.
we would definitely have expenses so that, we could verify them for the reimbursement.
Right, but that won't show up in the
No,
budget
that's how
that
I
way.
Well, except that I
Well,
want,
we could have it show up if you want it to show up. We could put a separate line item in.
what I'm saying is though, the budget that we've passed, by moving this grant, we're not saying that the chief can go over that budget. the expense budget. He cannot
Oh,
exceed
his
that
own
expense
expense, what
budget.
he's saying is the budget we've already set for 2019,
Right, but that
FY
was set by
2019,
village meeting.
that it
Right.
shouldn't, yeah,
Right.
they
And
shouldn't
the,
go
what
over.
we're saying is that if, in other words, if the chief said to me, well, by passing this, we have a chance for some additional revenue, we're gonna have to incur some expense that will cause me to be over my budget, then I'm against it.
Right, so we're not
So
going
this
for
has to
that.
be all done within the approved budget.
I think the goal was to have this be outside of the budget, but
This won't offset the budget. This is entirely separate from the budget. It's not gonna take $8,600 out of the budget.
So we definitely
And
need to
I'm not
track
asking for any more money
expenses.
in the budget. I'm not saying that it's going to incur any more. As a matter of fact, it should offset it some, because this is $8,600 that the police department will be receiving from Governor's Highway Safety Funds. This will be to promote safety in this community.
Gary, go ahead and then I'll talk to Josh.
Because
So
if
this
you-
is
if
not
you-
gonna
Wait,
require
Jake's wait.
any more overtime from our officers that's gonna show on our reports that us as the village has to pay out.
You're going to see it on your overtime report because the officers are working at
Okay.
overtime, but it will be reimbursed by Governor's Highway Safety. I would have to report it to you.
No, I understand that, but
We need
is
a moment.
it a
John's next.
quick return? Is it a yearly return?
I don't-
how
I'm not
fast
sure.
is the reimbursement?
How they pay it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It'd be worth knowing that.
Okay.
I mean, if it's a year,
It's not gonna be a year.
okay.
I'm not,
So, entitle me to listen, if it's a year, and then we're gonna see this on our report, then we're gonna go over your budget with the overtime and all this.
I wouldn't get involved in it if it was that long and drawn out.
Okay.
Okay, that's the question I'm asking.
That remains to be seen, of course, because you don't know how they'll pay.
Yeah, 'cause
but
the-
yes, it's a
the
concern.
overtime
Wait,
amount
Jake,
that we
I do
have
have two
in
other
there.
trustees who want to speak. John?
So I also noticed in here, equipment totals, we're the only department that has 0 on equipment from this.
We're not receiving any equipment from the
I
government?
didn't, this is our first year.
Oh,
Okay.
This
Well,
this is our first year of participation.
Is it Brattleboro's, Dover's, or the sheriff's? Is it-
They've been ongoing and continuously involved in this program.
Okay, I was just curious,
First time
when you
for us.
look at the money allocation, you know, there's another 18,000 that's getting doled out to the other
Well,
departments for
that's-
equipment.
Just so we're clear, Governor's Highway Safety has been nice to us, because I notified Governor's Highway Safety that I had obsolete breath detection equipment, measuring breath detection when you're doing a DWI enforcement. The Governor's Highway Safety Program brought us down 3 brand-new ones. I mean, they're pretty kind entity to work for. They gave us a significant amount of equipment, just
but it
to
doesn't show
be
here,
nice.
it was,
That's right, because it's not involved in this program at all. I was looking for a price to add to next year's budget to buy new equipment, and they said, we'll bring you down some.
Stefan.
That's what I wanted to ask you, because I noticed it in here, checkpoint sign packages, cones, radar, speed enforcement equipment.
No.
Okay, and I want to allude to, while that officer's out there, he's evidently our officer, he's driving our car, who's paying for our gas?
There,
They are,
It's included with the
54
overtime.
cents a mile.
54 cents a mile,
Yeah.
okay.
It's the
Now,
Fed rate, yeah.
the one thing, and this may be different than my colleagues here that I want to mention, if our officer goes to Dover or Brattleboro, we're going to get compensated for that, right?
He paid the mileage.
Yeah.
I'm not, Stefan,
what about
I
the
have-
hourly?
I have no intention of sending our officers to Brattleboro, Dover, or Wilmington. No
Well-
intention. And yes, it is my decision.
Okay, then what I'm saying though is, if they go there, are we compensated for their hourly wage and for their fuel, et cetera, all this stuff?
We would be compensated at 100%.
Okay.
Yes, for not only their overtime rate, but their overtime rate with
Okay.
all the other compensations that they receive. But
And
I'm telling you, they're not going.
Okay, well,
And yes, it is my decision.
I understand it's your decision, but it's the appearance too, and it's a PR move. What I'm saying basically is cut to the mustard. I don't have a problem with the car going to Dover or going to Brattleboro, especially if I see their cars here, because you know what I'll hear? I'll hear, your cars ain't doing anything, but I see all these Brattleboro cars, these Dover cars, and these state cars doing stuff. But also, the other side of that is, it's the collaboration, the cooperation, and the communication that I spoke of earlier. If Brattleboro and Dover or somebody wants to do a project here and bang the offenders, whoever they get, texting, DUI, whatever, I don't have a problem sending a car to Brattleboro or wherever, Dummerston, as long as we're getting paid for it. And if you can make extra money doing that, and you got an extra person to do that, go ahead and do it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you know, you're in a team effort. Some of these guys and gals go to the academy. They like to see some of the people they went to, served with previous here or there. You know, we're making a contribution. They're providing an opportunity. It's a two-way street again. They're helping us out if they come here in our community and do police action. Why shouldn't we go to their community? Plus, it makes the Bellows Falls Village look good. That's my opinion.
Jake, you had something else?
I don't want our police, I don't want our policemen going down to Wilmington or anything else, so I like what the chief said.
It's intention.
Well, I'm just saying, we've got our regular standard people. We have someone who wants to, they need a detail guy for a night down there, and it's not affecting our schedule. I don't have a problem with it.
Oh, yes, John.
I'd like to make the motion that we accept the grant for the highway, for the governor's highway traffic safety program, and move forward with this.
I'll second it for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, Mr. Reese.
The only comment I have, I'm totally against this. I'm paying over $1 million for a Bellows Falls Village Police Department. I don't want a 103, I don't want a 121. If the Vermont State Police can't put someone to pick DWIs up 24 hours around the clock, they get to go off duty, and we have 2 guys in a cruiser when I come through Sunday morning at 8 o'clock, there is nobody in town. I think it's just a matter of rescheduling staffing when there's a high peak of crime Friday or Saturday or Thursday. I don't think we need all this policing, I'm sorry. And the Vermont
Mr.
State
Reese.
Police needs to pick up their tab.
Okay, you done? Okay, we did get that, Mr. Reese,
Yes.
the first time you spoke.
Well, it's pretty expensive.
So, thank you. And we do understand the compensation plan that we are looking at here and the likelihood that we will not be leaving our own regular wide area. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion from the board?
Just again to reiterate that this does not allow the police budget to go over budget as a result of this
Understandable,
program.
that's correct. Did you have something, Wendy?
Well, when you say over budget, if we get to the end of the year and this program, and we still have funding, to me, it'd be a shame to not continue the program if we're getting reimbursed for the
Well,
expense.
At this point, we've all asked that question, when will it be reimbursed?
Right.
What does it say?
We don't know when I mean, I assume it
I
would
don't
be
have that,
pretty
but I'm
timely.
assuming it's
We're
gonna be
talking about
monthly.
overtime.
I'm not,
Right,
And what I'm saying is that we have an overtime budget.
right.
That's the limit that the chief has, okay? This can only help us with more revenue.
Right, and we need to
Okay.
receive the revenue is what he's trying to
Yes,
say. We need to see
yes,
that.
we can, we'll report to you how this program is working out
Yes.
as soon
Yeah.
as we get
That'd
the
be good.
reimbursement.
I would
Yeah.
say,
And so that we know the process and we know what people are doing.
Okay, so the motion, so could you read the motion, Carrie? Do you have the motion?
Jonathan Wright made the motion to accept the grant from the Governor's Highway, is it Governor's Highway Safety Program, is that what
Yeah,
it is?
yes.
Traffic safety.
Yeah,
Traffic safety.
no, it's Governor's Highway Safety Program. Yes, it's the
Seconded by
GHSP,
Stefan.
yeah,
seconded by Stefan.
I'd say, take the initiative, anything that we can get for equipment, take advantage of it.
Before we vote, would you accept a friendly amendment that we anticipate regular reporting? Because if it's not in there and we go to future years,
Yes.
turns up with that, so with regular reporting. I only say that because we've had other
Define
things where
regular.
it just goes on.
Well,
You should define regular.
With,
Quarterly?
say quarterly reporting, that would make sense to me.
I mean,
Time for the
on
program to.
the
to
comp
reflect.
time reports, can't we, I mean, the officer that's doing that, on the overtime comp time. I mean, isn't that the description that would be involved in that,
Oh,
the
you think
overtime?
Probably, yes.
And
Yeah,
that
I
would be a way to get
expect
our
so.
reporting.
Right.
And it might be more frequently than quarterly, but thank you.
Yeah.
Gary.
But we would also like to know the revenue stream coming in as it comes in, whether it's from the violation fines or whether it's
So
from
a
reimbursement
separate,
as well.
account line would be helpful to see where that, if
Right,
that
well-
income's coming in.
We'll report at least quarterly.
Okay, and do you accept the friendly amendment?
Certainly, certainly.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the amendment? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, you have the motion, motion passes.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Thank you for coming in. Number 4, BF, Bellows Falls Fire Department, Rockingham Health Office, Chief McGinnis and Health Officer Chuck Wise discussing the Deputy Health Officer proposal.
I'll start, and then the chief can chime in at a certain point.
What do I do with it?
Stefan, thank you for recommending that I come to the trustees. Thank you all for having me tonight. This
Glad
was a
to see you
good
here,
point
Chuck.
to mention. I have pitched to the select board. They have yet to accept or reject the idea, but it's the transference of 10% of Chief McGinnis's time in moving him towards facilitating the administration of rental housing code, primarily in the village of Bellows Falls. So this is, I don't think there's any action that needs to be taken by this board tonight. This is just a wait and see, but a good opportunity to have a discussion about the role of health officers in the town, the focus that we've had in the village. A health officer is appointed by the Vermont Commissioner of Health. This is a state position, it falls under state liability, and there's a fair amount of obligation to enforce public health issues in a town. Here, we have the unique issue of rental housing in compliance with basic rental housing code. So not only are we attempting to enforce housing standards a fair amount, much more than any other community I've ever worked with. This is one of our issues. But we're also facilitating state groups when they need technical expertise or just boots on the ground to make sure is there compliance with Vermont lead law, for instance. 2 years running, we've had cases go up to the Attorney General's office because of our collaboration with the Department of Health, making sure that people who say they're complying with lead law are in fact complying with lead law. And that doesn't always happen. So it's a very active position here, and the supermajority of calls that I receive are in the village. Because you have a couple conditions which are important for the public health hazard. You could be a health hazard out in the middle of nowhere. That is a private issue. It becomes public when your actions traverse a property boundary and impact a greater group of people, and that's when we get called in. These calls are cyclical, meaning that sometimes we deal with trash in the spring when the snow melts and all the detritus starts warming up. We get tenant-landlord complaints all the time. Right around now, we start dealing with heating issues in these buildings, unable to achieve an adequate heating temperature. So this is a very active position. It's rewarding work. It was almost accidental that the chief and I started working together because many of the compliance issues that I'm dealing with, there are life safety issues, fire code issues. So to call the chief in, specific examples, that collaboration sort of grew organically, but we realized, hey, we have a lot in common here. Some of the code that he's attempting to implement at the village is part and parcel with my work. And then in that inspection process, you find yourself exchanging a lot of notes. So our move in the pitch with the selectmen is to make this a little bit more official and at least start with a small, amount of time, 10% full-time equivalents, and move in that direction, see what that's like. So that would be transferring 10% of the chief's salary line item from the village budget to the town health budget. So that's kind of a big step that the selectmen have to consider. I think it's a worthwhile step. I think it puts us more in the proactive stage. The selectmen, I've been doing a fair amount of condemnations and teardowns. That's at the end of that discussion. A lot of those buildings that we tore down, they all had health orders and they had fire life safety code violations and stuff. So maybe getting more on the front end is gonna be more useful for all those involved. But again, this is just a proposal. A few things that are concerns of mine is there is plenty of work to do in the village. It would be very unlikely that the chief, should we move in this direction with 10% of his time, find himself out in the town. There may be a cause for that. Right now, in order to be empowered, you have to be appointed by the commissioner, as I said. There's no one else to do this job. So when I'm on vacation, I typically have to come in and cover this position. So that would be one of the few occasions where you'd see maybe the chief gets called out in the town. But I think 95% of the time, he's gonna be still within this village.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that's per recommendation of the select board though, correct?
Did you hear that?
I'm sorry?
Is that per recommendation of the select board?
I didn't get that feedback.
Is what
You didn't
per
get that
recommendation?
feedback?
No, but the work is here. That's the
No, I
main
understand
issue,
that,
yeah.
I'm just saying, I thought it was
Did
my
they agree or
understanding.
did they not agree?
Well, no, what I'm saying
It's
is,
a budget
I believe the select board
proposal.
makes the recommendation to the state, and then the state goes ahead and appoints it after the select board.
That's right.
makes the
Yes, they can
referral.
recommend somebody be appointed, but
Right.
ultimately the appointment is by the commissioner. That's very, yes, correct.
Okay.
So I'm here as a resource, ask questions. 10%, I think if we move in this direction, it is very much an experiment. We have a lot of goals, they're pretty, high order goals. This last week, we did our first proactive inspection. Not called, we knew there's potential for issues. I have been reacting since I got here. I react to complaints, and that's the best we can do. There's plenty of work just in that alone. But saying, oh, this property owned by this individual has these deficiencies, let us consider that maybe the other properties they own exhibit similar signs of distress in their buildings. I haven't been able to get to that next step. I think this collaboration paves the way forward to getting to more of that kind of work. So it was pretty exciting last week to have that. In context, I would get 2 or 3 calls a year in previous jobs where the health officer was just a sort of pro forma appointment that the zoning administrator gets. I get that volume in a week here. It's pretty steady. Now, this is repeat customers, and there's a way about doing work. So it's not as arduous as it sounds, but it's there. The activity's there. And one item I probably was remiss in not mentioning, but our work has changed dramatically this year. The state of Vermont issued new guidance that said, in the past, if I had a dispute over hot water, leaking roof or something, I went in and inspected that base issue, and that was the end of my inspection. Now, we come in for anything. It triggers a need to do a comprehensive review. That rental housing checklist and inspection is a 14-page document that covers a myriad of things, basic living standards that need to be upheld. So now a call is much different than what I've had to deal with in the past. If we get permission from the select board, then I will reapproach the trustees and say, we have this opportunity, and I'm here to solicit your input as to how to proceed, because I think this is going to be a year-by-year experiment to see how we can build capacity, doing it in a way that augments the health and the life safety inspections without taking away any of the chief's primary mission capabilities. Did I cover everything?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, I just want to say that the select board is being proposed this as a budgetary need for FY20.
Yes.
Which doesn't start until July 1 of 2019. You are currently using the chief at this point already without any compensation from the select board at this point. And we have another 7.5 months to go.
So in the case of last week, it was life safety. So I have not expanded him but he was there to deal with fire code, I was there to do rental housing, and the two of us are doing the same work. Making his job easier because you arrange the time, you get all the access to the building, and you go. So there is some efficiency of doing it all at once. But yes, technically, yeah, I've been accessing him and as a resource. We want to get
Village property.
for village properties
Yeah.
only, and the focus has been, I see exposed wires, I'm calling the chief. I think this is a fire hazard. We had active health calls on some of the buildings that have burned or had fires. So I've had to learn that I don't have that skill set. I've got to call the chief, get them down here. This boiler doesn't look right, or something to that effect. So yeah, that's what started it, and that's why I've been utilizing his services. You haven't done a rental housing check.
I have not.
Yeah, not yet.
Okay,
I think
Yes,
it sounds good, and I certainly wouldn't want to stop what they're doing now together, collaborating together.
I just want to point
I
out
think
that
it's,
if it goes out to the town.
It's
and-
too important,
It
too
could.
important to not continuing to work together as best you can.
Yeah, everything that we worked together on so far has been life safety issues. He'll call me and say, I'm going to this specific property, would you like to meet me there? I think that there's gonna be some issues there. And sure enough, we find some life safety issues. I call the fire marshal, have them come down. Otherwise, I don't think that those problems would be addressed.
Now, isn't it possible that if you were to have to go out into the town, the outside of the Bellows Falls, you could use one of the other fire officers? Couldn't you? The other chiefs, Rockingham or Sackles River.
In those
those
instances,
properties.
yeah, I've learned very quick that a fire chief's skill set, what they bring to the table, makes them an ally in my work. And that's not something I figured out overnight. It's just been slow, like realizing, hey, this is dead useful to have you here. So, quite right.
Okay.
But again, the majority of my focus has been the substandard housing in the village and getting on top of that. This is just one element of building capacity. I cannot wait until we get some fine structures or inspection fees set in and begin to speak, and particularly with some of these property owners, there's one language they talk, and that's money.
Right.
And we need to get to that place where we're talking their language.
And that's part of the plan, is to look at, the tenant landlord group we've been talking about, how that meshes with the new inspection requirements of the state, which are being amended constantly. That's a moving target. And then also with code compliance, so that all of those three need to work together, and the town and the village need to work together. So this way, there's a representative from each, and it just seemed fair for the village to get compensated, really, for some of this, and have the town pay some of the cost of the chief.
We could, in a rental housing violation, we could issue out a health order. Those health orders take 60 to 70 hours. And some of our problems are half the cost of what it would take for us to do a health order. Those changes in state law are saying, look, if you use this inspection checklist, you can issue fees now. We need direction from the state as to how that's gonna look. Our local ordinances have to be built to allow that. But we really wanna have this good tooth to tail ratio, which is when we're out there, we see a problem, here's your municipal ticket. And it happens quickly, not the 60 to 70 hour legal document that is difficult to implement.
At this time, there's no funding from the state to provide these services, to get on to code enforcement, and all that is not being funded by state money.
Yeah, my understanding is no, there's
They
not.
want people to do it, even who have volunteer health officers, which we heard up at VLCT.
Right.
That they had people who were doing it on voluntary time, weren't even paid to do it, and they are now being pushed to do more
Right.
than they were doing before.
I think $100 a year is the standard.
Yeah, lastly, I'd just like to say, I've had a few citizens come and speak to me, the concerns over the slippery slope of putting town and village together, to do this work, the concern over over the merging of these entities over time. Not initially, but over time. And there is some concern of the utilization of resources that the village pays for. So the possibility is that this selectman might choose to disavow themselves of any 10%.
Oh, sure,
But of course, the
decision has
health
been-
officer is appointed and has to do the job in the town, even if the town includes a village that has a separate municipality. So.
Yeah, but then how do you define has to do the job? I mean, that's the rub, is
As defined by the
he can-
commissioner, right, I'm assuming, so,
Yeah, I mean, there's more work than he can get to.
yeah, certainly there is.
And he can do his work more effectively, sorry, talk about it in the third person, with a deputy,
With a second set
health
of.
officer,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyone else at the board have any comments on this? Yes, John?
I mean, the one thing I haven't heard is from Chief McGinnis, and is this something that you're willing to take on and add into your daily?
Absolutely.
or your-
I've been watching these meetings for 15, 20 years now. And going back to the days of Kathy Bergman was one that really wanted to push some kind of housing standard in this village. And I think that this is a great way to start that.
Mr. Reese?
I also think this is a slippery slope again. Just like I said, I'm looking at it, you know, this grant thing with the police department as free policing for 121, free policing for 103.
This is-
Excuse me, point of
This isn't
order.
about policing.
We're talking about,
We're talking about
yeah, I know, but
fire
please,
department.
please
Well,
stick to the
okay,
subject.
what I'm saying is, I disagree, because I think if we're gonna be playing this game, then the Village of Bellows Falls should think about filing bankruptcy and let the town take everything over. I'm not paying 2 taxes for everyone else, free.
Thank you, Mr. Reese, for your input. Okay, anyone else have anything on this? We have no motion or action to take at this time.
If the select board moves in this direction, it'll be incumbent upon us to meet with you again. And I think lay out a work plan that says, we anticipate some concerns that were mentioned tonight, which are very valid. Let's make sure we're accounting for our time properly and we're doing this in the right way, so there is no slippage.
I agree with that. Thank you. Thank you for coming. We move on now to number 5, ordinance review committee approve the revised motor vehicle and traffic ordinance. We see this again, hopefully for the final time.
New and improved.
This year, anyway.
Constantly improved.
New and improved, right. The parking regulations will be at at a subsequent meeting. Which is actually also part of chapter 4.
So are these ready to be adopted?
These are ready, and, let's see, the second, part B is to approve the notice and ad publication, because we have to, well, just like any changes, like closing a road or whatever, you have to give, I think it's 60 days after these, for the public to speak on it, or appeal, or complain, or whatever, they're allowed to do with what we put out there. And how do you have to publish the whole thing, or just a,
We
brief-
publish that concise summary,
yep,
it's in the ad there, and it says that the entire
Oh, here we go.
ordinance is available for inspection.
okay, so this whole
Never
page.
has anyone come in to look at any.
That's it.
Okay, John? Thank you.
I'd just like to make a comment in reference to all the work that's gone into this, and I'd like to thank everyone involved, because I know that this has been, this has taken up a lot of time for a lot of people, and it's gone back and forth.
Over a year, actually, when I realized, when we
Yeah.
started this.
I mean, this has been an endeavor that's been going on for quite some time. And I'd just like to thank everyone that worked on this, putting this together and getting it to the point where it is now, where we're ready to go ahead and make these changes.
Okay.
Now, did you say the traffic is gonna come later?
The parking regulations,
Parking.
the second part, that'll be at a subsequent meeting. So this is just the piece that we have to,
This
the
is
parking
the-
regulations can be adopted in whole by the trustees. With the motor vehicle and traffic ordinance you have before you, that has
Okay.
to be, has to have a 60-day waiting period.
All right.
The parking and traffic regulations do
Just-
not.
Do not,
Those
right.
become effective whatever.
Immediately.
Whenever we say so, yeah.
But the truck weight regulations are in this document.
Yep.
Right, which would allow for signage and that sort of thing.
Right.
Okay, so let's see, is there a motion here? We need to make, or someone want to make a motion?
I was
don't
gonna
see
say,
it
do we
written.
have one pre-written?
No.
I don't think so.
I'll make the motion that we adopt are we changing or amending?
We're amending.
Revise.
Approve the revised.
That we approve the revised motor vehicle and traffic ordinances for the Village of Bellows Falls.
Seconded.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further comment on this?
Well, my comment is, I believe that, I agree that this was a lot of hard work involved in this, but I fully believe that as a taxpayer in the town of Rockingham and Bellows Falls, that we ought to take these past ordinances, bring them to the select board, and have them adopted as town ordinances. I'm telling you, we don't have a budget for enforcement other than we've got a police department. And I think that the town should be the owner of the ordinance.
But they have no mechanism to enforce. They have
No?
no mechanism to enforce these.
Right, but,
We do.
but it would be included in it's gonna be included in this ordinance. So anyway, that's my,
Yeah.
that's my,
Anything further? Right. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, motion passes. So we also need a motion for the notice and ad publication, or not? Yes, okay, so we need a motion for
I'll make
the
the
summary.
motion that we approve the notice and ad publication.
Seconded.
Okay, any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The fastest one we did. Okay, now moving on to number 6, Finance Department. First, the FY 2019 year-to-date budget status report. And we had a written report from Wendy.
Right,
To
it was
Wendy through
from
Cynthia.
Cynthia,
Yeah.
right, a memorandum to me which she highlighted some of the, particular items that she thought you'd be interested in the FY 19 report, and so the items that she references in the memo, hopefully you notice that they're highlighted in the report, which I thought was a great way to do it. So I can go through them, or you can let me know if you have questions.
Well, I
On
think
any of
they, like the first one, talks about this accounts receivable, which resulted from the fire monitoring that we suspended last year. And her recommendation is that we should write it off.
I didn't agree, but,
Well, I think if we have no opportunity to collect it, then we're foolish to carry it on
have we
our books.
removed all of those boxes?
Oh, yeah.
So no one is receiving any service
Or
at
they're
all?
disconnected if they're not
Yeah,
removed.
the services have been,
The services have been
it's no longer
terminated.
being offered.
Okay,
I think it was September of last year.
was that what it was?
Well, it's kind of, yeah, it might have
In
gone a
that
little bit
period,
beyond
Might have
that.
gone-
September,
okay.
October,
I think
yeah.
it was supposed to be, yeah, so,
Because these are the ones where we were doing the monitoring,
right,
not the call boxes.
right.
And I think if the finance department said that they can't collect it, then I would think it would be all right to,
And it's
For
not,
sure.
and it's not past due amounts, is it?
they're,
Yeah, that's what I didn't know.
Yeah,
Is
I mean-
anything at all due
well, they
from
were billed last.
the tax year?
Last year.
Yeah, they were billed in 2017. I mean, she can investigate it further.
Just to be sure we're
Um,
not gonna see any
it's-
funds.
Or leave it for the new finance director,
Mhm.
but,
Again, on the delinquent taxes, we got the schedule. Again, the question is, you look at some of those ones and you wonder if they are collectible.
right,
And I guess we're undergoing the audit now, so we'll find out.
well, the audit won't deal with that, but the process to collect the delinquent taxes will deal with that.
Okay.
I see the list here, but trying to go down through.
There is
Yeah.
one item that does, where she asked for a preference,
Yep.
under the budget status report.
Which one? is
Number
it?
3, water
Uh-huh.
department transfer is yet to be recorded. Actually, Brian, I meaning to ask you about this. From my understanding, this is the amount of the cell tower lease. I believe the cell tower lease was, not expected to be continued. I don't know if you're, or is that one
No, it's
okay?
still
Okay,
ongoing.
there's another cell department.
My
It is a different one.
recommendation is that we would record it when we receive it.
Okay,
Mhm.
so
We
that's,
receive it monthly.
Huh?
We receive it monthly from AT&T.
Okay,
Oh.
pay monthly.
okay, okay.
If that's the way to do it, then that would be the, because I know in the past, it's been like a lump sum payment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the question is, there's a lot less bookkeeping if we do it a lump sum payment. I would opt to do a lump sum payment
Yeah.
and work it out with Brian as to the timing, whether we do it at mid-year or whatever.
We don't ever see it anyway,
Um,
so
Yeah.
just.
I'd like to
So-
ask, number 5.
Wait a minute, are we gonna deal with
Under
that?
4, what?
The
Number
one, the
3.
one that she's asking about, we wanna, that they get it monthly.
We should record it monthly.
No, no, no,
Shouldn't we?
because then you gotta do all the bookkeeping.
Oh.
So we ought to record it as received when it's paid
Okay,
and do it at a lump sum.
I
So-
see.
So it's
Okay.
the second option, wait until year end and
Second
record
option,
the actual
okay.
amount received. So if the rest of the
That's
board is
fine.
good with
Well,
that,
I
is
think,
that,
we don't have to wait for the payment to the end of the year.
so you're saying by,
Say December 31st or something.
So what do you guys think? Anyone have any different concern over that? Apparently not.
I mean, I agree, in doing it monthly, you're just adding more paperwork.
I guess so, yeah.
To deal with it. You know, it's a set value, so it can be done on an annual basis, even though the checks come in on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
so we're saying biannual, basically, is what Jigs is suggesting.
What we're saying is that it will be recorded in as a lump sum by December 31st.
Right.
Right.
And that's, yeah, and then we have the
Okay?
remaining amount by the end
The
of the
Right.
the
fiscal year.
transfer to the village.
Right,
Be one lump sum by December 31st.
okay, that's fine. So
Okay.
that's in the middle of the
It's in
fiscal
the
year.
middle of the year,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so it'll be that way instead.
The other one on the first page, number 4,
I don't understand, I had a question on that. I didn't understand why this letter is dated the 7th and the printout was dated the 7th, the report pulled the same date, and yet the correction isn't reflected on here.
which correction?
Number 4, which is the trustee wages and village president wages, they're all posted to one line to the trustee
Oh,
wages.
no, I'm sorry.
That's
I was
number
on the
4.
first page,
Oh,
number
okay,
4.
where are you? Oh,
This is the Trans-Canada payment.
yeah, oh God, again?
That's confusing, and my recommendation is that we ought to just pay it off. It's all been expensed. It's not in our budget.
Right?
We've got the cash. Let's just pay it off.
Right, and we were
Get
talking
rid
about
of
that
it.
on Friday. Yeah, I think it is wise to talk to the auditor and see why they're proposing what they're proposing. So Cynthia hasn't had that conversation yet
Yeah.
with the auditor.
With the auditor, okay.
Yeah,
And it says you had a wrong, there's a call in.
that's,
Smith. You
that's
haven't
the auditor.
Got a response yet.
Right, because he had a very specific recommendation that, isn't what Jigs is talking about.
Mhm.
And Cynthia has the same concerns that Jigs does, but I
Right.
think we should hear from the
What the
auditor
auditor's perspective is.
before we
Okay.
proceed. Yeah, and on your question about the, same date, I believe what happened was Cynthia ran the report and then wrote the memo.
So
And
the report's
didn't
run at
rerun the
12:15 and
report.
she did the correction after that.
Right, right.
So
I
next
expect
time we
she
see it,
was-
it should be right. Okay.
Yes,
The numbers 8 and 9, both dealing with the fire department, the equipment expense. I mean, the fact that it's hitting our books this year is really unfortunate. And I don't remember the discussion, quite frankly, that he could spend half of the proceeds or whatever
It had
it
something to do
was.
with outfitting
I
a
think,
truck,
I think this is the cost so far of outfitting the truck to be a, mobile command vehicle.
Right.
And they're doing most of, and I wanted to ask Sean about that, but he's not here. But most of what they're doing themselves, so the value of this work is much more than this, dollar figure for what it's worth.
It just negatively
But-
impacts our budget, so
Yeah.
it's a concern. And then the work comp audit,
Oh, I
I
see, yeah.
still don't understand how that could have hit us that hard. You know, we had a full-time fire department last year that we got rid of, that we furloughed, and yet the work comp premium, they've nailed us for like $6,000.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense
It
to me.
just
either.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I can find out more about that if you like.
Yeah, it's really over.
The other issue that I had with the financials is the legal expense, professional expense.
Where are you now? What number?
I'm on page 3 of 7 for the village. General
Right.
fund,
You're talking about number 5 on the second page then, okay, of her answers.
no, the NIMRIC, no.
No?
No, I'm talking about the professional services.
Village attorney?
Union negotiations legal, we got hit with we paid $1,713. We had budgeted $500, expecting no union activity this year. I don't know where that 1,700 came from.
I know I looked at some of the bills, it had something to do with stuff that's still open, that wasn't resolved at the end of this, at the beginning of this new fiscal year.
It may have been the official, the process to go through decertifying the union, but I can check on that.
Yeah, I think it was,
See if
yeah.
that's what it is.
Well, I mean, we need to get a handle on how much he's gonna charge.
Well,
You know, I
this
mean,
would be done.
Is this done?
I believe so, but that's
Well,
the other thing I'll check on.
Because obviously, we're gonna have to manage that $12,000 one. That's running pretty close to budget. And,
And we don't have any, we should not have any other union stuff that would come up at all.
and you've addressed the employee benefits. That's a work in process, I guess.
Yeah, and I think we need some adjustments to that too, because there should be actual costs in those,
Yeah,
in many of the items so that'll
Yeah.
look different next time.
okay. But that was helpful to get the cover memo.
Good, I thought so too.
There you go.
And I think the highlighting helps too.
Yep. One of the other questions I had, Deborah, was,
Yeah.
we have like a $2,500 balance in an equipment reserve in the village. The question is, should we use that as part payment for the police
To defer,
cruiser?
is there any reason why we wouldn't?
Well, the reason is, I think, I've heard Jonathan's concern, and I think to me, the concern, Jonathan, is that we don't have equipment reserves. We've got equipment, and of course, the town is even much bigger. I mean, when you look at the town, both in the fire equipment and the DPW or the highway equipment, we don't have any reserves. So everything is funded when it happens. In the village, we have the couple of trucks at the utilities, and then we have the police vehicles. But I think the bigger question is, should we have a capital reserve, and should we fund that reserve in anticipation of upcoming expenses? And as I said, it's a much bigger issue for the town. For example, take the bridges. We're looking at a bridge repair. We don't have any reserve for
Right.
For
That's
bridges?
That's exactly what,
And I think that I didn't want to get into it before, but I think if I hear you, that's the part that makes sense. That's something that would live between transitions on boards and
right.
those types of things. But I think it would take a concerted effort by our new finance director for both the town and the village. And I think it's something that should be done, but it's got to be put on a,
Well, I think the first step is having a handle on costing, what equipment is costing the village. And that comes from purchase price broken down over the course of its lifetime, including maintenance, scheduled maintenance and all of that. And saying that, like you said, having an equipment fund. First off is identifying what it is and what it breaks down to on an annual basis, and then the board setting up a reserve fund for the equipment, for the police department, for wastewater, and for water department, and funding it on an annual basis, so that we are putting in, you know, $7,000 or $8,000 a year into each one of those funds, allowing us not to have to all of a sudden approve a $44,000
Right.
all lump sum
That's-
payment
that's
in
the
one
issue.
year. And it, you know, what it allows us to do is plan it out over the course of the expected lifetime of that vehicle.
Right.
And it all starts with having that raw data from the beginning.
Right, and that's the schedule that I gave you, because there aren't quite as many vehicles, it turns out that the annual cost isn't that much different than doing
Right.
it. I mean, I think it was 19,000 a year, or,
But that really wasn't, I mean, that.
it didn't have the maintenance numbers in it, no,
It
it just
also-
had the
No, and I-
capital numbers in it.
I still think maintenance should be an annually budgeted.
Right.
Oh, maintenance should be annually budgeted,
Yeah,
but
I mean-
with capital,
But, right, but, I mean, those are the items that I wanna get. The biggest problem that we have is the turnover, you know, and so we're, you know, unfortunately, you're the third town manager in 3 years, and as these turnovers occur, these things get lost. And this is just a tool that,
Right.
you know,
Oh,
that you can use and that carries on, that allows continuity on everything from, you know, the policy on how the vehicles are maintained and taken care of, to funding.
right, oh yeah, no, and there is an equipment replacement program in the town that's pretty robust, and it's on the list to do one similar for the village, because it's important.
Have we moved past those questions, past Cynthia's pages? At this point, I have something in the water fund that disturbs me.
What's that?
On the page 2 of 4, the water fund, the insurance incentive is 153.98%. And I'm assuming that's not all of it.
What's that?
Page 2, the insurance incentive of the first grouping.
Under insurance?
Yep.
Well, they pay those twice a year, so.
No, not the insurance incentive. That's paid.
Oh, I'm
on a
sorry, that's up in-
bi-weekly pay.
It
Employee
may,
benefit.
I don't have it in front of me, but we've had a problem with things being charged to the wrong account. It
Okay.
could be that, but I don't know, but I can check on it for you. It's the water?
It's under the water fund. It's,
Under employee
5/17/10/30/20.
Okay.
Huh?
That's not right.
Thanks, Ron. Okay, well then, that needs to be adjusted.
Okay.
That was all I had. Anybody else? And I appreciate Cynthia's report.
Good.
It's helpful.
I will let her know.
It was interesting on the delinquencies. You start on the utilities, the number of delinquents that have agreements,
Yeah.
apparently to resolve their problem,
Yes.
and a bunch of others that we don't have agreements. I mean, we don't know from looking at this list, those that have been shut off, do we?
No, but if they have agreements, they need to abide by the agreements
Right.
to
No, but
stay
for
in
the-
that category.
For the ones that aren't under agreements, there would be,
Those bigger numbers you see are shut, their water's off. And some of those are, Westminster Fire Protection.
yeah, if we could get a little bit more
The list of
breakdown
the
on
shut-offs?
this. Just use this form, it's a great way to do it. Yeah. And then on the property tax,
Oh, God.
I guess the question is, what properties, you know, are we moving on, or are we foreclosing, or have we foreclosed? Kind of a similar rundown of, kind of give us a status.
Right.
Because I know work is being done.
Yeah, that, the attorney is handling that,
Of the tax sale
yes,
stuff?
yes. And I don't know when I'm going to have specific information on that, but as soon as I have it, I will share it.
Okay.
There's one here that we won't be doing that with, and that's Green Mountain Specialties. They're out of there.
Well, they're
So-
out of business, they're long
No,
gone.
what are we doing to collect that money? Because they have no property upon which we can attach.
Then that might be one of the ones that where we have to write it off, I don't know.
I mean,
I'd like to know what we've already tried to do to collect. Because I just keep seeing this, there's no movement. It's been since 2011 to 12, so.
And they've been gone.
I know.
And there was a tax sale since then, so.
Right, but they didn't own any property. They
It
were
may have
Right.
been
existing
decided
within.
not to include them.
Yeah, so what I'm asking is if we have taken them to small claims court or done anything, it's under $5,000 to try and get this money.
Yeah, I don't
Because
know.
I believe they're still in business, but I'm not sure. Not so much, you're probably never gonna see that money. Anything else on this item? Okay, if we can, we'll move on to B, which is just discuss the employee out-of-pocket reimbursement program. And this, of course, came because of the joint board discussion, and the select board agreed to accept the Blue Cross Blue Shield increases for the next year and that program, but the village did not. Who wants to speak to that issue?
I was just looking for the paper did we get a piece of paper?
We got a piece of paper.
Yeah.
A
No,
single
well-
sheet.
And then you have more paper.
I was looking for the
There's-
one that had the, from the attorney.
Oh, it was,
It's a single
That was just an
line.
email.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
just that email. I don't think I
Okay.
made copies of that.
I printed it and I wasted my paper, so.
We
Yeah.
have, this is,
That's the answer.
potential reimbursement amounts. And then you had this, I think this is in front of you, which is, you had before, which is the, actual cost
Pass it
in,
along.
in the past 4 calendar years, or past 3.
This is the projection, so it is, the proposed.
This
Total
is,
exposure.
this is the total amount that could be reimbursed if everybody participated in the program, but obviously they don't, and participated to the maximum amount.
What I didn't understand by this exhibit, under the first block is the health insurance premium. Is that what that is?
In this, where it says, Blue Cross, it says BCBS,
Yeah.
it's Blue Cross Blue Shield, number enrolled, 80% of the cost is, what the town pays, or the village. Or, Carrie, do you wanna explain it, do you mind?
Well, the municipality pays 80% of the highest premium, which is the platinum plan. So that is the 80% cost right there.
So 80% of the platinum plan is 21,000?
Yes.
Now then, Carrie, if you go to the two-person plan,
Mhm.
I thought we paid 80% of the cost of the platinum plan.
We do.
So why wouldn't that be 3 times 21,000 as opposed to 15,000?
Because it's two-person,
Two-person
not
plan's
family.
cheaper than the family.
Yeah, but we pay
Still pay 80% of that
of-
cost,
Of
right.
the
On the
premium for
incentive, we
that, for
pay
your
it.
family, two-person,
Right.
there's different premiums for different classes.
Oh, so
They're
we're
all in the
not,
platinum plan. But there's a family plan, two-person, employee, children, and
oh, these are
single.
all platinum plans?
Those are all platinum, correct.
These are all platinum?
Yes,
Oh, but we have some that are not in the platinum, don't we?
we do,
But you gave us, this is at the highest rate,
correct.
not the actual rate, but the highest projected rate.
No, that's the rate. You pay
80%.
80% of that platinum plan for whatever plan.
So this is
So even
what,
if they don't choose the platinum plan, we're still paying 80%
Correct.
value. So if the plan is less expensive, we're still paying 21,226.37 for a family.
Yes.
but you show this total health premium though. That's it for the village?
Are some of the 220,000 number?
216, and then the shared costs also, yes.
So that is the total? Okay. We have, in other words, 14 people. Okay. So then the reimbursement program is the theoretical amount? Or is it a stipend that's paid?
We pay up to 2,500
Yeah.
a year, calendar year, for family, two-person, or employee child, and $1,250 for single.
And we only pay 80% of it? I mean, that is the,
No,
why does it
that's
say
a
80%? That was an error on that column?
Oh, yeah, there is.
That was an error.
Sorry.
But that's on a reimbursement.
That is reimbursed. They have to present
Yeah.
receipts.
Right, of course.
and-
Now, this is not a government qualified program.
No.
Do the employees receive W-2s on the amount they receive here? I mean, this is taxable income.
I don't believe it's taxable.
I think it's right in our regular paychecks.
Well, it's-
We need to, you brought that up.
It's
We
tax-
need to
I don't
Is it
know
tax
how that
figure that
works.
out.
I don't do that.
How about the
myself.
incentive? How about the incentive? Is that taxable income?
Yeah.
I
Should
believe
be.
it
Should be.
is. I think so,
That's what, we need to know that.
yeah.
It makes sense.
Well,
whether
we
it's
need to
taxed
be
or
in
not.
compliance with the
Right.
IRS.
Feds.
Right.
I'm sure it's taxed.
The
Right.
incentive is,
I'm pretty sure it is.
because it was taxable when I was on it, when I first started working for the
Yeah.
highway.
But we don't know about the reimbursement program.
So my
Just add
my
it
issue was that I thought that I'm, as a trustee, I'm trying to balance the needs of the taxpayer against the needs of the employees. And I feel that our health insurance plan, without the reimbursement program, is outstanding, an excellent plan. And I think that the reimbursement program is over and above, over the top. And my feeling is, as we are struggling to manage our tax rates here in the village, that we ought to pass on the reimbursement program this year. I think that if, in the future, if the employees want to bring up as a bargaining issue the health plan, then so be it. But I think for the village, looking at the cost pressures that I see building, I think we ought to pass on it this year.
Anyone else?
I'm unfortunately inclined to agree with this one. I mean, you look at the values that we have in this table, we're looking at $300,000 liability for health insurance for the village, which seems to me that we are a health insurance provider with a municipality problem. I mean, that's a massive amount for the number of employees that we have.
You're saying 300,000 with.
Well, you have 220, you have
reimbursement in it,
220 with
right,
the health
yeah.
insurance, you
With
have
it.
three,
Yeah, not without.
30,000 with the reimbursement program, and then another 51,000 in the incentive program. And the unfortunate problem is that healthcare costs are inflating faster than anything. Interest rates, they're going up at rates that are, I mean, it's everywhere. Physically, they're uncontrolled. I mean, you can't raise rates 14% per year and stay in the same, for an employer and stay in business. It's one of those things that's very, very difficult to stay ahead This is an outstanding package that we have right here. I know that the reimbursement program is a benefit to the employees here, and I know that there's probably gonna be some pushback on that, but coming up in this next budget season, we need to really look at what the health insurance is going to be costing us in 2020, and start looking at it beyond, unfortunately.
But right now, we're in the fiscal year FY19.
Right.
Where it's already been ongoing for
Right.
5
There's
months.
nothing we're gonna do about it in fiscal year 2019. I don't think there's anything that we could do for it to remove that. But looking at 2020, we need to look at this.
So this would actually come up in January when we start doing budget.
I believe it comes up in January.
Right.
Yep. Gary?
Wendy, is this the total amount that was been reimbursed to date, the paper you just handed us?
The potential village exposure, yeah,
It
is
says
the
amount reimbursed.
2018, so this is calendar year,
Through
right?
through December 31st. That's what you're saying, yes?
Yes.
End of 2018.
Yes. Except it's through November, whatever.
So basically, this is
Yeah.
reimbursed so far as 13,615.
Which would actually make the total reimbursement program for the full fiscal year
Right.
27,000,
Roughly, yeah.
not
Well,
30.
Well,
No,
what's
no,
what's
this
this
is- this
amount
is through
reimbursed of
November.
$590?
This is
If it
11
was-
months, right?
Correct.
No, this is 11 months, the 13,615.
That's the shared employee.
Okay.
It's 11 months.
Yeah, so you add those two together, the 13,615 and the 590,
Wow.
those together, so 14,200 about,
Mhm.
that's what has been spent in
Reimbursed
calendar
so-
year 2018.
And when
So
you're
far,
talking,
right, but our fiscal year has another 6 months to go after that.
And we're in
But
2019.
this goes on an annual basis, I think. I'm
No,
not
no,
sure.
but
Oh,
we're
oh,
in
but
calendar
this is calendar based,
2018.
okay.
Yeah, because health is on a calendar, so,
Okay, so this
so only
included
half of this.
part of FY 18.
Correct.
Correct.
Only
Okay.
5 months of it is FY 18,
so at the moment,
or 19 rather.
we've saved approximately, with the incentive program, approximately $16,000,
We've
right?
saved nothing.
Well, the potential exposure would have been the 32.5, right?
Well, we haven't, I wouldn't say we
saved it
necessarily
yet.
have saved it, we haven't,
Well, you haven't spent it,
or,
allocated it.
This isn't the incentive, this is the reimbursement.
That's
Yeah.
right, that's
And it
right.
only
Well, you
works
just
if they
said the
turn in the
Okay,
receipts.
I'm sorry, the reimbursement part,
Right,
the reimbursement part.
okay.
But I would think that probably, now the last month and a half, the people, if they're paying attention, they're gonna be looking pretty closely at whether they can get
Not
any
everyone has
reimbursement, so I-
medical needs that require
yeah.
those
Right.
additional
There's
expenses.
people that just do not use the plan and probably never will use the plan as long as it
They
stays.
may not need to, they may
Right.
never,
But
not
there are
remember
some
to.
people
Yeah.
that definitely need it.
Mhm.
Can I speak to this matter? It affects me.
I guess so. Yes,
No,
go ahead.
if-
No, yes, I
if-
mean, Gary's a trustee who also works for the town, so.
There's no conflict
No,
of
no,
interest
no,
here.
I'm not saying that. I'm
The
simply saying.
town is different
I
from
am
the
simply-
trustees.
It does, but we're still paying reimbursement. So I'm simply
Okay.
saying, we're talking about the program of which you participate, so therefore.
Exactly, and I don't participate in it because I don't want to fill the paperwork out to collect that extra money. There you go.
Point
And I
taken.
don't want to hear
No, no,
any
no,
more
I know, I'm
conflict of interest.
Point of order.
Because I will bring it
My
up.
matter
Point of
bringing
order,
it up
please.
was a matter that you are an employee, you can speak to the matter, and therefore, Ron Lake or either of the other two employees here may speak to the matter as well. You didn't need to bite my head off to simply say that. I wasn't attacking you at all. I was simply saying you
But it
spoke to the
says
matter 'cause
point
you
here
are.
of conflict. I'm tired of the
I didn't say
conflict
that.
stuff.
I didn't say the word. I simply said you are an employee, you speaking to the matter because it is a matter that affects you, and therefore other employees may speak to
It
the matter
doesn't
as
affect me because the
well.
town already approved it.
Let's go.
Madam
Ron.
President, where I was going was if an employee were to have an illness that they have to deal with on a regular basis, and our insurance, however wonderful you think it is, doesn't cover that medication, it comes out of the employee's pocket.
Mhm.
And in a significant way, because the medication is not cheap. And the reimbursement does cover it, and it does help to offset the cost. And it only would affect an employee that has an illness that the medication you can't buy other than over-the-counter medication for, or script medication for. You can't just buy, well, I'll take some of B instead of some of A. You don't have any choice in these costs. They are significant. And however wonderful you think our insurance is, let me tell you, it isn't. And the cost for this medication is significant. Significant.
Then why do we
Now,
have a
like you said,
platinum
there are
plan?
employees that have these issues.
Right, I understand that, but why do we have a platinum plan that pays, I have to say it, crappy copay? Because that would be what you'd be looking at.
But they don't have a crappy code.
But if that is the case, and
What
they
you're
have to
saying
use
is
that.
you want to be able to pay nothing in health insurance. You want everything to be paid for.
I'd like
Okay.
the same policy the school teachers have is what I'd like to have,
Well,
okay?
yeah.
So in any case, you're thinking about something that you believe may be insignificant, when in fact it is significant. I'm not asking for a lot, and my employees, the 7 that are affected at the Bellows Falls Police Department, are not asking for a lot. Just some consideration in this matter, that it not just be written off, that it is one incredible healthcare policy. That's all. Thank you very much for your time.
Would either of you gentlemen like to speak to the reimbursement program? Okay,
And,
just want to give you the opportunity.
and let me point out, there is, data collected on what different municipalities pay for health insurance. I started looking at it, I can provide more to you. Some municipalities actually pay 100% of the entire premium. So that even the 80/20 isn't the highest amount of payment, so I can get that information for you, because this will come up again when we talk about budgets, obviously.
Which again, this heated discussion will return then.
Right,
Yeah,
but
understood.
it would be good for you to have data in front of you so that you can understand, just the market.
Okay, is there anything further?
You have someone in the audience.
Yes. Mr. Reese, please keep it brief.
Yep. 3 minutes. One.
No, actually,
No,
it's
3
one,
minutes.
no, it's 1 minute per,
Oh,
1 minute per
exactly.
agenda item.
I want to say I agree with Ron Lake, because some arthritis medicines that people take are $33,000 per year. And I also would say I would be in favor of the insurance reimbursement for those who don't take it, because they're saving you $20-something thousand a year. Take care of the employees again.
Thank you. All right, hearing nothing further, we could move on to other parts of the agenda.
Do we need a motion, or?
I was gonna say, don't we have to act on this? I thought, or do we not have to act on it?
They're acting, the town is acting on it because they're moving into their budget season.
Yeah, but this begins January 1st.
Beginning, that's, I forgot,
Yeah.
it's a calendar year, so we
Yeah,
would
it's a
need.
calendar year thing.
So we would need to move on it now.
We do need to move on.
Don't we have an agreement that we've agreed to this for X amount of time?
No.
No, okay, I'm
Nope,
sorry.
and it's not in the, it's
And I
not in
would like
the,
to-
But the attorney did state that it was customary.
Usual and customary.
Usual and
yeah.
customary.
It was a different
Yeah,
term,
yeah.
it was usual and
So
something
I'll move that we,
Well, can I just, there is one other point that I'd like to bring up, the union contract. Under fringe benefits, 20.2, medical dental insurance. I mean, the subsection A here, it is within our authority to do whatever we want to in this matter.
Which contract are you looking at?
The union contract.
which one, who?
What's the heading at the front of it? Is it
Water,
personnel
wastewater,
rules
and
and procedures, or?
Town hall?
Except for fire. Local 98.
Right, fire and
Right,
police
but
is
you could be
separate.
looking at police,
Okay.
I don't know.
Good, the cover page I think had it. Where's what you, when you.
It should say what you
This is the
Bargaining
local
unit.
98, highway department,
Right.
water,
Okay,
wastewater.
that
Yep.
covers 3 departments, right.
Yeah.
And it says,
It's in the book we all got.
Yeah.
Big
yeah,
binder.
yes, it
In
is.
the big binder. Where's the agreement?
20.2.
Yeah, 20.2 subsection A. In its basically to this agreement, understand and agree that the employer, in its absolute and sole discretion, may modify at any time during the term of this agreement.
Right. Understand that that bargaining unit covers town and village employees. Because it covers the town hall employees
Right,
in the
but
town.
we
And the
don't-
highway.
And the highway,
Right.
yes.
But we're not dealing with the town. We're dealing with the village.
I understand it, but the
But that's one
union
contract.
agreement was
Yeah.
signed by both the town and the
Right,
village.
and so, but at any time, the town can act on this if they wanted to as well. I'm not saying that we should or we shouldn't, but I'm not really I'm not very satisfied with the one-line, yep, answer from our attorney.
Yeah, that was not appropriate.
I'd like to question what that one line just cost us.
Yeah. I
Because
hope we're
one, it's not
paying-
professional,
I'm telling
and
you, we gotta
two,
review
Right.
we have to review
He
village
wasn't in
council.
town. I tried to get a hold of him. and he was-
We've gotta review that whole.
yeah, we need to scrutinize the billing, for things like that and look at that
Agree.
going on, but that's
Yep.
outside of this topic. I just wanted to make sure that we pointed that out.
Point that out, that is at the discretion of the board.
Right.
And my suggestion would be, in my opinion, would be, we don't need a motion. You have a somewhat of a consensus here to come back with some information or to go in a certain direction. I think at this point in time, that's,
I would disagree, because we agreed to accept the Blue Cross Blue Shield premium increases for the year, for next year, but we did not, but we eliminated the reimbursement program.
We didn't
piece.
eliminate it, we
Oh, I'm
didn't.
not
Well,
saying-
no,
No,
we
no.
didn't put it in our motion, that's what I'm trying to
well, I'm
say.
not saying to take action on that now. You got a consensus. Jim had asked for some more information.
We got it.
Okay, then that's when I would say after that, you take an action.
Yeah,
Well, there-
I'd move that we not fund the reimbursement program for 2019.
And I'll second that for the purposes of discussion. And it would be to me that the section that he quoted, we do have the authority to do that, but it also, and I don't have it in front of me in verbatim, but wasn't there something that if we were to change something that we meet with the union local to discuss this before making any changes?
That
I'm not.
direction is what we took from the one-line answer from the attorney, is yes, that his opinion was that
We've established that. yeah.
that we've established it and that we meet with the union.
I realize
believe
what
it's the
20.2
Personnel rules that say that.
Yeah.
That's
Any
what
change to the,
rings a bell earlier, yeah.
But this is not in the personnel rules, is that correct?
correct.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
So yes, if it was a
And-
personnel rule,
and
we would
keep-
have to meet with the
Keep in mind
union.
for my motion, it wasn't to eliminate the program, it was to not fund the
Yes, I
program in
understand.
2019.
Not fund.
Right.
But we would fund it through December 31st, 2018.
Oh, yes,
Right.
yeah.
Further discussion?
I would think we ought to do some more research, but you've got a motion.
What research are you looking for, Stefan?
Research would be that what the definition of that attorney's comment or wording is, because that is a little vague, in my opinion. And that we have an understanding, which per se is an agreement, and we're deviating, or we would be deviating. I understand not to fund, we're not eliminating, but, we got another meeting here in 2 weeks. Step back, take a breath, and take a good hard look at it.
That's what we did.
Anything further before we call a motion? Call for a vote. All right, all those in favor of the motion,
Can you reread that, please?
please.
To not fund the reimbursement program for 2019.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
No.
Nay.
Motion's failed.
I'd like to revisit this.
I don't think we're
Um,
And
satisfied.
you
doing this.
claim you don't have a conflict of interest.
Point of order.
Jigs?
Point of
This
order.
is not a
Jigs.
conflict of interest.
Yes, it is.
It's
Jigs,
not.
point of order,
select
4
board
people voted
voted
in the
For the
negative.
highway to keep theirs. I am not involved in this with the village. I do not work for the village, I work for the highway.
Okay.
Gary, the
Your
motion's
I
on
need
the
to
table.
excuse myself for a minute. Because stuff's gonna come out that you don't wanna hear.
Oh, good.
4 people voted in the negative. None of the 3 of us are employees of the town or village.
Right, that's correct.
And we disagreed. So
Yeah,
why
apparently.
did you go after Mr. Gleekway?
Huh?
Why did you go after Mr. Leakway?
Point of order.
I'm just saying, forget it. It's a
This is
conflict
not,
of
this
interest.
Okay.
is, this is not relevant to the conversation that we're having.
No. Obviously, the 4 of us do not agree that we're ready to do as you were requesting by your motion, so. Yes, Wendy?
May I have the floor, or
Oh.
after Wendy?
Just a question, you did not vote to not fund it.
That's correct.
I don't know if that means that you voted to fund it.
No.
I don't think it does, so I'm just saying, so it's not,
We're not done.
there's still not a decision that way.
Right. I would like to continue looking at this, and I would like to have some input from the union reps directly from 3 departments, or is there a 4th department?
No, there's
Well,
only
will
two
Sean-
unions.
Okay, so,
Right, we have 3,
98 and the
so.
police
Okay.
department.
Police,
so I would like
water,
to,
fire.
for them to offer some input, and
Water
so that
and
we can hear from the union reps on what the union members, are concerned with in this matter.
Do you mean their union stewards?
mean the
or
shop
you
steward?
the union-
I would just,
Assume.
through the union process, I would like to know what those union members are thinking in being involved in this decision, because so far, we have only had the chief's input
Right,
from the employee base. And before I make a decision on this, I would like to have some input, or have the opportunity for everyone involved in this program to offer some input. And I would like it done through the proper channels with the union, so that we have a document, hopefully, or at least we have.
It should be noted that department or head, the chief, is not a member of the union, so.
that's correct.
Correct. That's what.
And
But
I-
these, but these 2 people
No,
are,
no.
yes,
No, I'm not
department
sa-
heads are.
What I'm saying is, it's common courtesy.
Right.
Right.
It's something that involves them. If I was on the other end, I'd want it
So you know what we're
discussed in
looking
whatever
for?
capacity.
I believe.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're gonna have to check with the attorney again on this?
I'm gonna get a better thought
Clarification?
out and more clear
Yeah,
statement from the attorney.
a couple more minutes to be spent on this.
I'm not comfortable with village council on this.
We're stepping into waters that disagree with what the town municipality is already doing.
Well, maybe they're not concerned about the tax rate.
No, I'm not, I
I think my
understand that.
constituency is concerned about it.
Yes, and
It
I
wants
believe
to
they
be
are.
fair. It wants to be fair, so it's all a question of how much you want to increase the taxes. And for what?
For the health of our employee base. You could shave the money off somewhere else.
And you have a non-qualified plan here that probably has not been recorded as income.
That's
All
something
all
I also
information we would
wanna
like to know.
answer. Yes.
So
Again, is it taxed? Would be nice to know. Okay, so let us move on. Well, clearly, we need more information for another meeting. Let us move on to the overtime and comp time reports. Any discussion on those?
Well, we got canine care, et cetera, being broken down. That's wonderful, because that's what, we'd asked for that, so that's here.
Mhm.
But they're way behind in the accounting, if you see the amount that was shown on this month's financials.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Because we need to adjust for what's already happened.
Right, what's already happened.
And this expense on the reimbursement program is not covered in our books either. That should be definitely
Right.
covered in the.
If we have it in there, it's not any document we would see. It was only in minutes. It's the only way it
Plugged
turned
it
out.
into the
Right.
insurance premium, which of course is ridiculous.
Didn't we speak about wanting to see if that was could be separated, which would make it easier to understand? We would have had a heads up soon that we would continue to do
I don't know if we've had a
it.
chance to do that yet.
Yeah. Okay. Let us review the fire department and police department call logs, which we have here.
So we're done with the comp time overtime reports?
I'm sorry, are you done?
Well,
No.
I was letting everyone talk. Under sewer, we have two, I'm assuming that these two no explanations are weekend testings that were on here.
Duty.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
We had moved forward with changing the back of it. I thought Brenda was understanding that the 10 hours, 5 for each day is weekend testing.
Okay.
But we will now put it on the back of our time cards for Saturday and Sunday moving forward.
That'd be great.
That will be my bad.
So,
I take full responsibility. I do check the time card, yeah, exactly. Oh, I just don't get the math right, no worries.
The math is number one.
what's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, Jake. We all participated in lengthening the time of the meeting. Okay, may we now move on to the fire department and police department call logs?
I was curious on the fire department that we had 2 alarm investigations. You know, particularly where we're writing off the receivable, so it's kind of incongruous.
Interesting, huh?
And also 2 water problems in residences. I didn't know we
Oh,
did
yeah.
that.
They pump out water, that sort of thing happens if there's a flooding. The fire department does that.
Oh, they did?
Yep. I wasn't here, but I've had it happen where the fire department came along and pumped out my basement.
Nice.
But the alarm investigations are probably private alarms. I'm sure they're not the ones we had
We're not getting
installed.
paid
What's that?
for anything.
Smoke alarm.
Like smoke alarms? It could mean, yeah, it could just
CO2
mean simply
alarms, smoke alarms.
CO2 or smoke alarms. Okay. Anything on the police log? Note anything?
The only thing is, if they're gonna be turning in any information, it ought to really be dated. You know, that gives you a time frame. I know it's in the packet here, but it mentions the month of October, but I mean, somebody comes in the future and looks at this, and I'm not picking on this specifically, I'm just saying, month of October of what year?
Oh, right.
Yeah,
A little
say
more
2018.
specific, yeah.
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 Yeah, the police log's really
Yeah,
specific.
I mean,
Yeah.
no big deal.
A little more detail. Anything further on these? All right, and move along to we have the task list, board goals, manager goals. Have these been adjusted or whatever you were working on them, Wendy, so where are they now?
Yeah, looks like good.
Most of them are still in the blue. Are you talking about my goals or y'all?
Well, yeah, you can go with that first, that's fine.
So,
I see you've written them.
yeah, payroll process, in process, and now we've, done that, we're doing that through contract, through NEMRIC, which is good. Very good, actually. I mean, there were some issues that we had that are still being corrected. It's obviously critically important to be in compliance, and I have not had confidence that we've been in compliance for a while, so, this is.
Do we have it in the budget?
Yes, I mean, there are sufficient funds, yes,
Okay.
yes, and actually the town approved that contract, that agreement, the payroll agreement,
We didn't see it, so,
right.
but you're saying we're covered in our budget?
Yes, I mean, I'll double check, but yeah.
I have no
Yeah.
idea. I don't know what, is the town paying it? Or are
Yes,
they
the town is
expecting-
paying it, but I need to see if, I didn't put any, contribution from the village in that. I mean, probably we should, because, you know.
But in that case, we
But,
need to
um,
see
We
it,
haven't-
yeah.
Right.
we haven't-
I
Right.
mean, so you're getting a freebie, basically, on that one. So that goes in the,
Until
Well, we
somebody
in
don't
the
have it
good
in our
column
budget,
for you.
so-
too late.
Yeah. I mean,
Perhaps-
it needs to be done. We need to be in
Yes,
compliance.
we need to be, we
And
need to
the
feel
employees
confident about the
are,
payroll.
yes, that's critical.
You should perhaps add to your list of goals, hiring a finance
That's already on there.
director and hiring, an executive assistant.
That's on there.
Is it on here
I
too?
mean, it's not,
It's something you're doing, it's just saying
I'm
it's
doing
not
it
on your
now.
list. Yeah.
I mean, if you want me to take the time to do that,
I-
but it's,
It's in progress.
Yeah.
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 Okay, add to-
I mean, basically, everything is in progress. Assembling data and tools, obviously, we need a finance director to help with that. I want to do long-term planning, I care about long-term planning, but I'm fighting fires first, so I gotta get the fires out. New fires are starting all the time, but, you know, it's triage, seriously, it's triage. So,
Long-term planning helps that.
Yeah.
well,
Yes.
if it had been done,
I know.
that would have helped.
That's where we'd be.
Exactly.
So I cannot go back in time, so I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with and planning to do lots of long-term planning,
And that's the positive attitude I like right there.
There you go.
working on it.
There you go.
Delinquent tax sale, we've, told, the town has actually told the attorney to proceed with that. Audit in the fall, that's happening, beginning the budget for 2020. As you know, the village budget is influenced greatly by the town budget. Town budget is proceeding. Everybody can, you know, participate, come to meetings if you like. But that is proceeding, and I think in a responsible way. The personnel rules, it makes sense to do that review after the new executive assistant personnel director is hired. That'll be actually a great way for them to get to know not only the existing rules, but all of the folks involved. It's a huge group that takes part in that. That makes sense. Regular staff meetings, those are happening. I believe internal communication is improved. Wastewater rate analysis, that was done. Weight limit signage, waiting until after this, the amendment, or the ordinance was amended, which just happened tonight, that'll be done. Landlord tenant group, that needs to, for that to be effective, it really needs to be combined with the state regulations that we talked about earlier, when Chuck explained that. And then I've been talking to folks in different towns who do code compliance, and they've had success with it, and it's been income producing. I do think we need to figure out how we're gonna work with town and village ordinances, and the more different they are, the more challenging it's going to be. But
Shouldn't have both.
I'm just saying it's gonna be a challenge. The overall goal is very much worth pursuing, because when we raise the level of the housing and some commercial buildings, not only does it improve the health and safety of the residents, but it also improves the town and the village economically. So that's a serious opportunity, and a situation of rising tide, you know, raises all boats. But that is something we just can't get to until things are stabilized, and things are not stabilized right now.
Back to the top, Bellows Falls trustee task list, should be quick enough. Paving and sidewalks complete, structures, striping to be done. Has all that been done? All the striping?
All that we
done?
could do with the rain,
This
yes.
season until-
Yes,
okay.
the striping, yeah,
Good for now.
the ground is hardening while we speak.
Right, yeah.
Snow is going to fall. So yes,
Okay.
it's done.
The bridges, phone conference that's already been done. There was concern about the traffic plan during the demolition, so we've been talking, that's already come up at our last
Well, the
joint board
bridges
meeting.
is a huge issue,
Yeah.
and I believe I spoke with you about the state recommendations.
Right.
Yeah,
And
meeting
the,
on the 29th.
right, on the
27th.
27th. It's right before your board meeting, so
Which
it's
we
at
want to
5
go to,
o'clock.
yeah.
So, yeah, please be alert, you know, and be
Okay.
here for that.
I'm assuming we'll probably get a warning the same time the select board gets one.
I hope so.
Along with our
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
anyway, so that it precedes our meeting. You won't be here. Or will
Yes,
you be
I
here?
will.
Yes, you will.
27.
Yes, you will. And you're still here as a clerk, so. Housing, Windsor Housing Trust, we had, they were in here, we did hear from them.
Right, and you received the materials
Yes.
that they provided.
Yep.
And again, they really want to collaborate on lots of things, but one of them that's really relevant is the homeownership program and helping our residents who are currently renting be able to purchase homes. When the executive director was here, she mentioned that people are 80%, I think, of the renters are paying an amount that would
Greater.
qualify as a mortgage payment. So with that kind of data, that's
It's a worthwhile-
it's begging to be
Yeah.
taken care of, and they're ready, and I'd like us to be ready, and we will be ready as soon as we can.
Okay, Community Safety, Greater Falls Connections BF Youth Group to be invited, we haven't done that yet, to invite them
No,
to
I didn't
come.
meet with them. I had a good meeting with the Greater Falls Connection folks last week.
Good, okay, so at a future meeting, they should come talk to us about what they've been coming to the planning meetings. That's
Good.
particularly the Greater Falls Connections people.
Right.
To talk to us about what might be inclusive in the town plan. as
And
we
they
work.
really, one of the things they're really interested in is getting health incorporated into the town
Right.
plan. And they've offered to be a conduit for getting the community involved, because they have, obviously, no pun intended, a lot of connections.
Yeah.
And they can get people involved in the process.
And ordinances, yes, the committee is now on to, and we have been for a little while, on the streets and sidewalks, we're working on that. The goals, operate within budget, ongoing. Enhance finance department, provide more analytical input in anticipation of numbers reviewed, include information that gives forecast information to the board in advance. That's still ongoing. Water, wastewater, provide rate setting discipline for utilities and clarify outlook for future rate action that at this point has been done.
Yeah, and I thought the wastewater rate setting, maybe not the result, but I think the process was good. I
Yeah.
appreciated RCAP, and hopefully we'll be able to get those folks or someone similar in the next
future.
time we do water rates,
Point
because
this
I think
round,
we
yeah,
need to
that'd
look,
be good.
again, take a long-term outlook and project rates based on costs.
Intermunicipal agreements, redraft, we're talking about those, that's gonna be, that's a long-term.
Yeah.
That's a long-term project of, working on those, but we did see that some of them really need upgrading, to the 21st century. Policies and ordinances, review and revise village policies and ordinances in FY 2019, so we still have another 7.5 months on that. And we are working, that kind of reflects the intermunicipal agreements as well. Personnel rules, review and revise to provide equity to employees. We're looking at spring of 2019, right?
Correct, for it to begin.
Right, to begin,
It takes months,
Right.
yeah.
And lastly, village revitalization, effectively address appropriate upkeep standards for buildings, grounds, and create an initiative to promote home ownership, which also reflects on the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust
Right.
and the landlord-tenant group that you're working on
Right.
at some point, and when that gets to be realized, as well as the ordinances and the state mandate concerning code enforcement. So-
Right, and the work that the health officer and the
Right.
hopefully assistant deputy health officer will do.
Okay, all right, so I think we've covered those. Anything else, anyone? Okay, all right. We move on to review agenda items for next regular trustees meeting on the 27th of November. We had a couple things already, perhaps further discussion on the reimbursement program. Anything else?
66,
66, yes, 66 Atkinson Street.
and
may-
203.
And maybe we'll have something on 203,
Sure.
paper mill.
I was actually, after we went over this, we talked about Eddie Green, but did we?
Well, we're
town's still
trying
working
to,
on
we're
stuff.
gathering, we're gathering information.
What was that?
The Hetty Green Motel,
Oh.
we could approach it from a health perspective, that's probably what needs to happen. And that's our most ready tool, is looking at it from a health
Health
perspective.
And I have some ideas to put tiny houses on there, tear that down and make us a developer. Review agenda items for joint board meeting in January. I don't think anybody has
Too soon.
forced casting out that far. Approve orders, bills, and warrants.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I did have something, but it's something I'd prefer to bring upstairs this week that confused me. That was.
You can bring the legal bills up.
Yeah, the legal bills as well. Yeah, we're looking at those. I'll make a note. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Okay, motion carries. Other business. Let's start down the end of the table.
I'm good.
Well, I'm gonna single Paul out if he's still here. He's hiding over there. Hey, Paul. I think it's great that, you know, people are showing up here. Paul's showing up, taking the initiative. I know Paul used to attend faithfully every year back during the village and town meetings, but, you know, it's better off to hear it here than it is to run the store, grab a gallon of milk and be tied up 2 hours at the store because someone wants to.
And milk's warm.
I mean, it comes with a job, but I mean, it's nice that he shows up, takes the initiative and speaks up.
When I
A lot of other
utilize
people ought to
the
show up.
dialogue, And it's nothing personal.
No, I
it's just
know.
I have to watch my numbers.
Yeah.
Sure.
Wanna watch
Yeah.
You want us to do it too.
No, I think it's a good thing. I'm trying to encourage more people at home to show up.
Gary? Nope. Jigs?
No.
Wendy?
Nope.
The only thing I have to say is the trusses are supposed to be here this week and they'll be putting my roof on
Wonderful.
in another,
Congratulations.
from the beginning of the roof by the end of the week. And no need for executive session.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
All right,
Second.
seconded. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, aye,